Stuff. I'm just checking Twitch to make sure it came up. Okay, it came up. We're good. We're live. We're doing stuff. Hello, everybody, and welcome to. I still haven't made the title bar thing, so it's still the unnamed podcast. We're talking about the state of play that PlayStation had today, and it's me, Torloth, and Snarky. I guess we're still going with that until you
Oh,
decide what you want to call yourself. So you
no.
watched the whole show, right?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, nothing huge.
I kind of disagree, but go ahead.
Well, from my perspective, and then understand that's from a perspective that's not geared towards Sony. Um,
Oh,
like
I'm not a big Sony fan
I'm
either.
the thing is like, okay, you got Resident Evil 4, Final Fantasy announcement, and the Callisto Protocol. Those were the big new games. The other stuff that was coming out was more like re-releases on things like PSVR 2, like No Man's Sky on there. What is it? The Walking Dead Saint and Sinners. You also have Horizon Call of the Mountain on PSVR 2.
Yeah, yeah.
So the again, like if your thing, oh, and Enter Knights, that's the other one. That Enter Knights did look cool. Um,
Internet looks interesting, but I'll get back to that later. But overall, as a whole, the show. Do you
mhm.
think it was like, is this going to be the bar that everyone's got to beat? Because it's like the best. It's the first show in the Summer Games Fest slash when everything's happening because Microsoft's is on the 12th.
Well, I mean, maybe I watched the wrong thing, but it felt really low energy from
I'm gonna
from
be
like from
honest.
game announcement shows that I've seen before. Like when Todd Howard comes on the stage, like there's excitement to it, you know.
I
It's an
honestly,
event, and it didn't feel like there was other
Resident
than
Evil
Final
4, like they
Fantasy.
front loaded the best announcement they had. They front loaded Resident Evil 4, and it was probably the best of all of them there. Like, yeah, we saw gameplay finally for the Callisto Protocol and
Hmm.
Final Fantasy 16,
Hmm.
but Resident Evil 4 is the fan favorite. It's a game that I have a love-hate relationship. I loved it when it came out, but I kind of hate it now because it led Resident Evil down this dark path of being just crappy third-person action games. Mediocre action games. It set the bar and then didn't the bar kept getting reset by someone else and they just were like whatever. So I'm curious what they're going to do with Resident Evil 4, but it's
Hmm.
not as big to me as when they were like, check it out, Resident Evil 2. Resident Evil 2 was like, but yeah, like looking at these announcements of the big ones, Resident Evil 4, Street Fighter 6, Resident Evil Village VR, the show is basically, in my opinion, carried by Capcom. And none of those games outside of the VR patch or version of Resident Evil Village are exclusive. We don't know if the VR version of Resident Evil Village is going to be on other VR platforms or not yet.
Well, I
They
mean,
didn't.
it didn't. I don't think it said. I, I'm I'm always both interested in seeing how they do a spin on zombie movies and zombie media, but at the same time, I'm on the edge of being bored out of my mind with it because they've beaten the heck out of the zombie horse, so to speak.
Yeah, there was a lot of that. Could be one of the things that you actually take away from this. There's a lot of stuff that's zombie-esque or
Um,
horror-esque here, but like the Callisto
it,
Protocol, Resident Evil
mhm,
4, and the VR version of Resident Evil Village, and The
well,
Walking
well,
Dead Saints and Sinners.
mhm. Well, to give Resident Evil their proper due, they have had the throughout the intellectual property's history have had a more unique way of looking at zombies
Yeah,
and stuff like that. So I'll definitely give them that. Like, love or hate Resident Evil or anywhere in
well,
between.
you want to take a side on this because I'm the guy that owns like every Resident Evil game, has played every single one, and I think you played none of them or very few of them.
I played a little bit of some of them. I did not like the controls on the one I played. It was a while ago, and I haven't come back to it.
See, I can totally understand that. That's the problem with a lot of the older Resident Evil games, is because they came out when 3D was new, basically,
Hmm.
and controls were tank. You controlled the character going forward, and
Hmm.
it wasn't intuitive. It really wasn't, and you had to get
Yeah.
used to it. So
It's one of those
honestly,
things, like, again, to give them their credit, like, while I didn't enjoy the controls of that Resident Evil, and that kind of threw me from playing it, I definitely enjoyed seeing it be played. And it was one of the ones, like, when Resident Evil Village came out, while knowing that I'm not going to go play this game, I was definitely going to go and watch someone play it because it was honestly a pretty decent storyline, in my
did you
opinion.
watch 7? Or because it's a direct sequel to 7, and I don't want to spoil anything for
Mhm.
anyone that hasn't seen it, but yeah,
And again,
that's
like, it was a unique spin on it compared to, every other zombie media out there, or Evil Dead or The Walking Dead. There's
even
always,
Evil Dead isn't just zombies. It
yeah,
it had its own fun thing, but
yeah.
no, I agree. There's a lot of zombie stuff. That's my kind of issue with the Callisto Protocol. I don't know how you're
Well,
supposed to say it. I forgot,
the
but
the Callisto Protocol is it, it's a survival game. It probably better way to put it is survival horror game. And
well, that's
the
what Resident Evil
keys
coined the phrase for.
the key to these types of games is atmosphere and story. Um, to to a certain extent, like, the story doesn't have to be as strong. You can have survival games are more of a atmospheric experience in the way they're playing the Callisto Protocol. It does seem like it's probably going to be one of the games with, like, some jump scares in it.
Well, they
Um,
want it to be the scariest horror game ever made. I don't know if that's possible. I'm trying to think of the scariest horror
oh,
game
oh, they're trying
I
to
have
make the
ever
Callisto
played.
Protocol the scariest horror game.
Yeah, there was something about that. I'm trying to
Um,
think like it
unless they didn't show it
it
in the
looks
trailer, it's not going to do it.
it looks freaky. It's got I didn't feel unnerved watching it. It felt kind of tame. Like Dead Space, the Dead Space remake. And that's the funny thing, right? Is the Callisto Protocol comes out in December, and the Dead Space remake I think is coming out in January.
Hmm. So it's going to have to compete on the coattails of Scorn then, which is coming out in October.
October,
Uh,
yeah, and that's the
and
thing.
then
Scorn is
let me see. There's also, and I admit I'm ill prepared. There's also the Outlast Trials, which is supposed to ish
I'm
either
I'm always in for
2022 or
new horror type
2023.
games.
Um, but I don't see any
Well, we're
at
at the
least stayed for
beginning.
that one. That's
We're still
still
at the
to be
beginning
announced.
of announcement season, right?
Hmm.
This is the first event of many, because I think Summer Game Fest starts this weekend.
Hmm. I think so.
Yeah, or next weekend. It's this weekend or next weekend. It's soon, very soon, and we're gonna see more from the Callisto Protocol.
Well,
Which
like I said, unless they haven't shown something in the trailer, which is possible, from what they've shown, it I agree with you. It is fairly tame, for
it
a survival horror game because it's all tried and true stuff. I mean, it's
I
it's
gotta
got
be
elements of Dead
honest.
Space in it. It's got elements of you know Resident Evil
I'm
aspects
gonna be
to it
really
as well.
honest with you. The Resident Evil 4 trailer was far more scary than the Callisto Protocol one.
Oh yeah. I
Like,
mean, and then
I'm
if you
not
ever
being
watch
like,
the
oh, it's
trailer
better.
for,
It's just scary.
well, you watch the trailer for like Scorn, you're like, y- y- you're.
Gore's crazy because it's such a um surreal world.
Hmm.
Like, it doesn't look like it should work. You're not familiar with anything. Like, there's stuff that's familiar, but it's like perverted and just absolutely not what you expected it to be.
Hmm.
So Scorn has that going for it, where
Hmm.
it's more like you're completely unnerved from the get-go because you're not in a
Yeah.
real world location. Whereas the Callisto Protocol's kind of playing on things we've already seen before. It, is it the video game version of Ghosts of Mars?
It does appear to be similar in that aspect. The Callisto Protocol had some elements of jump scare to it that looks like they might be leaning on, whereas the
Jump scares are bad.
um, the Scorn game is it is kind of more on while playing this, you're going to be uncomfortable and on the edge of your seat,
Yes, I
like throughout.
feel like I'm gonna be frank, probably with everybody watching or this. I'll probably go play all three. I'll play all of them. Don't you worry. But I I should say four because Dead Space remake. I'm gonna play all of them. Don't you worry. Every single one of them I will play, and I'll let you know. But honestly, I think Callisto Protocol launching when it is has a lot. It's it's a new IP for one, new studio with some old talent.
Hmm.
Probably one of the more interesting things. I'm glad we finally saw gameplay esque for it. I think there's supposed to be more gameplay at Summer's Game Fest. Keeley was talking about it on Twitter. Jeff Keeley. I'm not. Most people I know just refer to him as Keeley, so that's where we go. Yeah, Dead Space Remake's January 27th. Man, it's
It
crazy. So Callisto Protocol's December 2nd, and you said October was Scorn?
October. They didn't. I don't think there was a date.
Okay, so October's Scorn,
Yeah,
December's Callisto
October is Scorn.
Protocol, January's Dead Space remake, and then March is Resident Evil 4 remake.
Mhm. Now to give the Callisto Protocol its due, it from what I'm seeing, it has the newer engine. Out of so Scorn and the Outlast Trials are on Unreal Engine 4. Um, Callisto Protocol is on Unreal Engine 5, and you do see aspects of that come through. So it does look much more.
And I'm not sure how much that's gonna matter in the long run, like for gameplay and that, because that's what matters the most to me is the
It
is gameplay is king
it,
kind of
it
deal.
with any type of survival horror game, it's the atmosphere is king. Um, the idea is putting you in a situation where a jump scare would scare you. Um,
Yeah,
because like if you're looking at a circus and you see a clown, that's not scary. But if you see a clown out of a um, sewer grate and there's suspenseful music with it, you, your heart rate starts increasing. Um, it's so graphics aren't as much like as
You
far
want
as like how good your graphics can be isn't as much of an issue
the
when it comes
thing is,
to those types of games. It's what kind of atmosphere you are able to convey.
yes, because my brother's actually been playing, and I maybe shouldn't talk about this, but you can now sideload DuckStation onto your retail Xbox consoles, and he's been playing the original Silent Hill. And for a game that's got the pixely graphics and bare minimum thing, it's still creepy. It's still unnerving.
Oh yeah, there's horror games and horror survival games are one of the genres that you will find the most the widest range of graphics. Like it you will see modern horror survival games that are almost 8-bit graphics level, pixelated, everything, and then you will also see the most realistic, like someone's watching it through a camera graphics, and
That's
it at the end of the day, it's all about that atmosphere that you can develop. So and they're all experiences. It's now it'd be interesting to see if there's any type of replayability. I don't honestly, most of the games in this category don't have a lot of replayability. They're that one
no.
of experience, and you go, okay, that was cool, and then you go on with your day. Um,
I could replay most of the Resident Evil games just for fun or whatever, just because I enjoy it. But like, if
Resident
you
Evil
want
is
like for
definitely
the
the exception.
scary and the spooky, like Dead Space is a game that I play through once in a while. Everyone's gonna be different, of course, but the Callisto Protocol, who knows? Um, like that was
It
the thing
again
with
depends on how they play it. All we have to see from that is the trailer and a little blurb about it. I mean, it looks cool. It looks really graphically very well done.
yeah.
Um, there is an element of that you can kind of feel that atmosphere, but at the same time, uh, like if you were to compare it to like Scorn, like yeah, you can notice that Scorn isn't quite as graphically good as the Callisto Protocol, at least from
Scorn's
the
been in
trailer that we've
production
seen.
for quite a while. I
But
think the first time we
atmospherically,
heard about Scorn,
yeah, but
I'm gonna look it up.
atmospherically, Scorn like checks off the boxes uh a lot more. Not to say better or worse, just a lot more because you're just watching the thing. You're like, you have so many questions.
The game was first Scorn was first announced in 2014.
I believe it. It is definitely one of those games that has
It was
taken
a Kickstarter project game, and then they're taking
Mhm.
Xbox money now.
it has gone on an adventure.
It definitely has, but when you're trying to make it, trying to make HR Giger's stuff come to life, that that can't be easy. It really can't. His stuff was so intricate and so just out there.
Oh yeah.
Like I don't think anyone really does art like him. Like since
Uh,
like
I've
some people
seen
try,
I've
but
seen similar stuff, but not. I mean,
not
he's definitely
not as like you see it and like you see the alien and aliens. And you're like, that's Giger.
yeah.
You know, like that those weird paintings that they used in the film for like the egg room and that and like the he was the master of unsettling, creepy art. So trying to capture that in the game, Scorn I had not heard about until 2020, but
Hmm.
when Xbox, I think, showed it off 2020 for the Series X launch.
Hmm.
So I'm very much looking forward to playing Scorn to see if I could actually play Scorn, because I think it's gonna be one of those games that's gonna make me sick. It might make me sick, and I'm gonna be like, I can't do this because it is kind of gross. It is.
It's gross, and you hear everything, and the sound effects are gonna mess with me. Definitely.
It's a gross looking game, but I will definitely give it a shot.
When it
Um,
looks like you're changing the configuration of your gun, you have that like sickening sound of like disjointing somebody. It's just like, oh.
oh my god,
That's
no!
always the
Oh,
thing. That's always the thing that will get me in any movie. Like if you just show me the scene of somebody getting like from Saw when that kid gets his like legs twisted. If you just
yeah,
show it without sound, I'm like, that looks like that might be painful. You give me the sound effects, I'm like, whoa.
yeah. Oh, yeah. No, for sure. Okay, let's talk about some of the other stuff they showed off. Uh, Stray. Let's pick the game that maybe you're interested, maybe you're not. Cyberpunk Cat Adventure.
Or as I call it, cat simulator.
Cat Simulator. No, it's Cyberpunk Cat. It's the Cats of Us. Call it whatever you want. They showed this game off forever. I think it was just a tech demo at the time. It's like, check it out. There's a cat game, and and then they called it Stray, and it became a real game. I think it's a French studio. Honestly, a very interesting game, and I'll be very interested to give it a shot. It is coming to Steam. Most of the games they announced here were also going to be on PC, and some of them, all the Capcom ones at least, except for the VR titles, are going to be on Xbox.
Hmm.
So, for the most
I'm
part, it was basically just third party stuff that wasn't really PlayStation exclusive.
Yeah. Well, like from what I saw the trailer about Stray, it seems like it's, while not being like this huge, AAA blockbuster game, it looks like it would be a fun experience, definitely. I like the graphics, I like the world. It does, I always
It,
like adventures like this where it's kind of like it's less, how do I put, less noisy. Like you see a lot of like action adventure games in all these different worlds across the genre, where you get into gunfights, and don't get me wrong, it's fun to be in those moments in the game, but every once in a while it's nice to be able to sit down and just explore a world. Um, with it,
yeah, it does
it has
seem
some
like
action moments, but it's not as,
it seemed more like
like I
stealth.
said, noisy. It's not as noisy.
It's well, you're a cat. You're not gonna be
Yeah.
the cat's not gonna try and pick fights with things. And there's the weird robot backpack thing, but Stray
B-12.
definitely, yeah,
That's
it's
the
next
name of
month.
his small flying drone. The cat befriends. It looks really cool. I'll be honest. It's one of those ones that had not heard about. Um, because it's not a game that I typically play, because you the games that are kind of like follow that same kind of implementation, they range from like professional game development studios to indie developers, and you will find a lot of diamonds in the rough, but there's a lot of rough also.
Yeah, oh for sure, a
And
ton of
so,
rough.
like, I mean, there's some games that like, shoot, I played, what was it? I can't even remember what the name of the game is, but it was like about 4 or 5 hours of gameplay. and it was entirely atmosphere, and like it kept like leading you to think, okay, I'm about to have a jump scare. Some spooky stuff's about to jump up and slap me in the face, and never happened. It was
Has the studio done anything else? I'm trying to think.
that one. Stray.
I'm trying to remember what the studio was. Like Stray to me seems like it's a
Stray is by
it's
Blue
like a what
12 Studio, and let's see what they've done. They there we go. This is looks like it's their first.
Yeah, I was gonna say I think it is their first.
I mean,
Honestly, Stray kind of looks like one of those games that is sort of experimental and is taking a genre that is known, where it's like an adventure game, and turning it on its head. I love games where the protagonist isn't necessarily a human being and not someone who's the
mhm,
same level of sentience or intelligence as a human being. Do I think that's gonna alter the way I played? Maybe, I don't know. Stray is definitely one of the most interesting indie games to come out in a while.
mhm,
I mean, they also showed off Tunic, but Tunic was already out on PC and Xbox, and that is also a really good game, but for very different reasons. I do not think Stray is going to be anything like Tunic. I don't even know if Stray is going to break my top 5 this year of games that I play, because there was a
mhm,
distinct lack of some stuff they showed here. But I don't know, like it does look interesting. At least I have to
mhm.
say, there's not a lot of games where you play cats that are not jokes. Like there's cat lateral damage. I mean, that's a game that you play as a
Mhm.
cat and you just try and break
Yeah.
stuff, but it's
Well, I mean, I think it's a hell of a game to start your studio's
yeah.
history with.
I'll be
It's pretty
very
like it's a pretty good production value. It looks really good production value. Honestly, like I don't see anything about it that makes me go, man, this
no, it doesn't look
what you
like
do,
it's
duct tape two mice together and call it a game.
yeah, it's not like I don't want to talk crap about Kana because I know people love Kana Bridge of Spirits, but that game, well, beautiful and completely and utterly fantastic in a lot of ways, had a lot of weird issues that were clearly caused by it being their first game and not knowing how to deal with an issue. And hopefully, their next game's better, because Kana Bridge of Spirits is a pretty fun action adventure game. The weird thing with that was you had these little, they called rot, little black guys that followed you around,
Mhm.
and the more you got, the worse performance got. Even on my beastly PC, and I had to hard cap them, which is an option in the menu, thank goodness. But there's also weird stuff, like you'd start an animation or you'd cancel an animation and
Mhm.
it wouldn't transition smoothly. It would just start the animation again from the start, which is something that you'd expect from someone who only did CG cutscenes or CG commercials, is what they did before. Um, so very optimistic for Stray. I always love weird indie games. I love playing them and checking them out and seeing what they can do. Hope to be impressed by this one, because Tunic was a
Mhm.
very refreshing game. Okay, let's
Yeah.
look on this list again. Anything else before we
It's being published by
Annapurna?
Annapurna
Pura? Yeah,
Interactive. They also did Outer Wilds, which was a pretty cool.
Yeah,
game
they
to me.
they published like basically every weird kind of like 12 minutes was theirs. Um,
The Artful Escape, Solar Ash, Neon
Artful
White.
Escape is real. If you have not played the Artful Escape, it's on. I think it's still on Game Pass.
Mhm.
It is not very long. I think it's like 4 hours long. Put on a nice pair of headphones, block out the rest of the world, and just enjoy. Like I'm not kidding. I hope you have a nice monitor with good color balance because that game is a feast for the ears and eyes. It's really good. I really liked
Mhm.
it. So
Yeah,
I
this looks like very much in line with the types of games they help publish,
yeah.
which is really cool. Um,
Yeah, they definitely have a brand of stuff that they do that is, and there's nothing against that. 100%. I think that they do good work.
mhm.
I always look at the games they publish. It doesn't necessarily mean I play every game they publish.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's see what else was interesting here. About Callisto
Uh,
Protocol. You mentioned Tune It Quick. Enter Nights. Or yeah, Enter Nights. The dating sim action adventure game, which I think got. This is nothing new.
if you ever wanted to go on a date while also beating up bad guys or girls, uh, here
We
you
don't
go.
judge.
Here's your game.
Enter Nights here is interesting. Um, I think it was made by like one guy or something.
I could see that.
There's a small remote independence. Okay, they're small in several different countries. Okay. Um, honestly, the game doesn't look bad, but
No, it definitely has a style to it. Um, and I actually like the style. It's that right combination of anime-esque and CGI that kind of works for it, from what we're seeing in the trailer.
yeah,
And it's definitely one of the ones that I would. Now, it'd be interesting to see how, because
it looks like it's got fun ideas. Like there's like dating mechanics, whatever. It depends how like intricate the dating mechanics are included in the game. The thing is, I'm gonna go out on a limb here. I'm gonna say we're not young, spry spring chickens no more. Not like over the hill gonna die or nothing, but every time it's a dating sim type game, every time there's one, it's always like teenage girls and teenage boys and stuff. And I get that that's a huge part of being that age in life. Um, I remember when I was playing Yakuza Like a Dragon, which is kind of weird. It was so interesting to play as a protagonist who was much closer to my age because I ain't getting any younger. I'm like, I don't know. I did the math the
figure
other
that
day,
out
and
now,
actually,
have you?
I stopped counting after like I was legal to do everything. I don't care how old I am anymore. But I had to do the math the other day for something, and I was like, ugh, I am definitely closer to Ichiban Kasuga's age than like any of these 20-year olds. Like he's like 40-ish, late 30s, early 40s. And I just wish that we could see something more mature in one of these games once.
Oh,
Like there's usually
definitely.
mature characters, but I think it's time to realize that not everyone's a teenager anymore, and teenage romance is usually not very good. You're still discovering things when you're a teen or in
You
your
don't know
20s.
anything when you're a teen.
Yeah, you know nothing,
So
and
you're going
well, I do
off
like a good.
and you have that fake it till you make it, level of confidence, and so you proceed like you know what you're doing, but even at your greatest moment, you're like, oh, so that's how that works. Sweet.
Yeah, basically, and well, I think this can totally work, and I don't think it's a bad thing. And I'm not trying to throw shade at this game in particular because there's a
Mhm.
lot of games that do it. Like the next Persona game could have an older protagonist. I'm actually very much looking forward to the sequel to Yakuza Like a Dragon because I want to know where Ichiban's crazy adventure goes next.
Well, what I'd be interested to see, because the thing that I'm looking at is you have it's three-dimensional um, anime style, so kind of like the compute CGI level animation.
Well, it seems
Um,
to have actually 2D animated cutscenes with like
and so it
things.
it looks like there's some comedic elements to that, and it depends on how they play it. I don't know until I play the game, but whether it will feel jarring going from one style of art to another,
I
or
can
whether it
say
just will flow with
that's
it. Because I mean, like,
that's the
have
thing.
you ever
Like,
watched an anime where the background is perfect? Like, like you see the background, and you're like, it is in, you know, 8K, and then the foreground, what's the action that's happening is like in 720p. Have you ever seen that? And just
there's a
you can't
disconnect.
get
Yeah,
into the
no, no, for
anime
sure.
because you're just like, what is happening here?
What
I
is
cannot
happening?
handle this.
Um, that's the thing. Games like um, Persona, which is this is definitely trying to pull from a bit, and like Tales from Arise, I was talking about probably before the show or mentioned it maybe on the show. Um, have usually animated cutscenes from an anime studio, so they're going to be done like you'd see a show,
Mhm.
and those can be very jarring, and some people hate them because, for instance, if you have a character, I don't hate the like 3D animated cutscenes, but I do have to admit that if you're trying to show like real action, getting an animator to draw it out and animate it in 2D can look really flippin' good.
Mhm.
But it does have its downside.
It can look really good or fall flat on its face.
Well, it if you get a good studio to do it,
Yeah. Well, it depends. I think if it's jarring, if they do it in a comedic way, like a non-serious way, not necessarily comedic, but in
trying to
like
think if
don't take
any of the
yourself too
cutscenes.
serious level. I think it would work for it. It really depends on how seriously they take it. Because I mean, we've played dating games that don't take itself at all serious,
Well,
and those are fun to play.
I mean, if we're talking about Monster Prom is a competitive dating sim and serious business. I can't do it with a straight face. I'm sorry. Like, honestly, could this game be good? Possibly. I think it looks decent. I'll have to take a look when it actually comes out. But I don't
It
think
feels
this
like
is
it'd
gonna
be an
be a game
interesting
I'm
one to
gonna
give it a
like.
shot. I wouldn't.
Maybe. I don't know.
Un,
I play compile hard RPGs. Like
yeah.
I but a lot of those don't have dating mechanics. Dragonstar Vanir did, but that game is good. I like it, but I don't think I could recommend it for everyone. Every time I try and get someone to play it, because I know they'd like it, but one of the characters is basically a little girl, and she's one of the ones you can romance. And that sounds weird, but the main character's like, "Oh, I'll wait for you," and it's like, this feels so bad. Like any of the other girls, any of them, literally any of them. Pick any of the other ones. This character tree, this is a dead end. Cause like, I always hated that trope. The little girl who's like in love with the big brother type character. Might not be your actual big brother. Cause girls do that. They like fawn over guys that are much older than them. And it is realistic to a point, but they usually grow out of it. Because they realize when they get older that
Sometimes.
that there's other things for them and that person's not the same. Okay, Street Fighter 6. Let's talk about that briefly. I don't think you're a big fighting game fan.
Not necessarily true. Never taken it seriously. I'm usually the button mash sort of person, so that's why most of my friends kick my ass on it.
You
But
can do a
Street
lot
Fighter,
by just learning some basic stuff, but
yeah. um, I mean, it looks cool. I forgot how thick Chun-Li was, and
she looks
how
pretty. I think they thinned her down for this. Hold on. Show me
how she
Chun-Li
is.
again.
I don't think she has ever met a leg day that she skipped.
She's
And
actually
she
not as
probably added
beefy as
some.
she was in the last one. I'm pretty
She
sure
isn't
she was.
as beefy, but she's still pretty thick.
Yeah. So yeah, those are big thighs still. Yeah. I
And
like her new look though.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Drive system overflow. And then it has a single player campaign that's not supposedly going to be just a bunch of fights and a thing. It's like there's like an actual world. You can go walk around the city and check stuff out.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it looks like it's got a bunch of different you know, places to fight in. It looks I
Well, you
mean
can go around the city and like go challenge people and go on like a little quest. That's actually very interesting. That's much more interesting to me than a regular Street Fighter arcade mode where it's just like fight this guy, then fight this guy, and maybe there's a blurb of text in the middle. Like I
one of
played
the things
Melty Blood.
that'd be kind of interesting to see how they do it is they have real time. Well, they call it enter the real time commentary feature, where they have a bunch of different uh, actual FGC commenters incorporate their voices directly into the
Wait,
game.
what? Hold on. Do I really want no?
I mean, they
I
could have
don't
a
know.
lot of fun with that. It really depends on how they do it. I think it would be
I've
hilarious
never
if
met
they.
Aru here, the Japanese commentator, or Jeremy, or heard of these people. Jeremy Vicious Lopez, in
But
quotation marks, vicious.
he's got a moniker, Vicious.
Yeah, but Aru's
He's
only got
serious.
one name, and he's got that pose. You
That
pick
means
Aru, man.
that means he's the big deal. He's the boss.
Yeah, no, like honestly, he's got
No,
like
it's one of those things. If like Madden had a aspect of something like this, where of course you have the late John Madden. Is he dead?
I think so. He's gonna be on the cover of the next Madden, I think, but I think you are correct. But yeah, no, I don't think this
I
is a
said that, and then I'm just like, wait, did he? Yes, he's actually dead. But they had his voice on it, and it now. Not that John Madden ever said was really spicy or hilarious, but it'd be some stuff like it's like I don't know what they're trying to do there, but that's definitely not what I would have done. It made it would be put in a place that it made sense, and it made you kind of feel more engaged in something that shouldn't, on the surface, really engage you too much. Uh, and if they have this feature, if they do it right, I think it'll make the fight scenes a little bit more fun because you'll have someone commenting about it.
I don't think it's a bad addition at all. It could be very interesting for just casual players, or to have at parties and then the guy will comment, or maybe you can turn it on and off for a fight. As long as it has a robust multiplayer,
Hmm.
the regular Street Fighter fans will be happy. It
Oh yeah.
sounds like they're trying to combine like Final Fight and Street Fighter here, because there was Final Fight. Well, it's Metro City, and Metro City is where Final Fight takes place. So I think they're combining the two into one game, which honestly, I think that's kind of cool, because fighting games like live or die on their online basis. And the thing is that the majority of players aren't good enough to want to stay playing online. They like to play like the campaign mode, and then they're kind of done, or they'll play arcade, they'll play with their friends, but they're not going to delve into the higher stuff unless they're very interested in it. It's kind of a big deal.
Hmm.
That's like every fighting game. Like I picked up Melty Blood a while ago, and honestly, it's a really fun fighting game. But the problem is, no one wants to play with me, like ever. It's like, you go out somewhere. I got my Xbox, or people come over. Oh, you want to play Melty Blood? Maybe we play like 2 rounds and then put something else on.
Yeah.
Whereas this new like open world esque, I don't care if it's open world or not. That doesn't mean it's better, but being able to go
Uh,
around the city and maybe do missions or quests and things, maybe that'll make the game better.
I mean,
I'm not a big Street Fighter fan.
at its simplest, it can be just a more organic way of going from different modes.
Or you
And,
can
and
decide
again,
your route.
like if you wanted to include both multiplayer and single player, it could be just two different locations in the city, whereas opposed to two different selections on the menu. Um, it it
That could be
it
annoying though,
it can
depending
be
how far
annoying,
away
but
they
it
are.
really it depends on how they do it. If they don't try to make the city like this focal feature where you have to explore it to get to the multiplayer, if they don't do it like that, if they make it easy to get to the different stuff, it's definitely would be a more organic way of going from different modes and stuff like that. Um, it depends on how they do it. Like it's a typical fighting game. Like they you know,
I think this is kind of
I
them
don't.
trying to like bridge the gap between a fighting game and like an action adventure game.
Well, the thing that it
Maybe, I don't know.
looks like they're trying to do is they're trying to make it more accessible. Um, because there's certain elements like part of having the commentators is to then also help you learn how to play, and get a better grasp of the mechanics that they can then use for future battles and stuff like that.
I
Um,
mean,
that's part of
so
the
do
stuff,
you.
as well as kind of like added excitement and all this other stuff. And if they do it properly, I think it's a good entry level feature because I mean, while fighting games are not my like go to, like I'll start drooling and at the first suggestion of pre order, I'll just be screaming, "Take my money!" I've never done that with a fighting game. Um, I would always go over to someone's house and play a fighting game with them, and then they would wipe the floor with me, and I'd be like, I have no understanding of this game. but
Not even for your boy Geralt on the cover of Soul Calibur 6. He's in 2B's DLC in it. Fucking stacked cast. Stacked. And it's got the
like
character creator. Soul Calibur's not that hard compared to like most fighting games. Like it's much less about like button inputs, which is, and that's the thing. Like you do need the game to be somewhat accessible, but you need the mechanics to not be too.
not you don't want to dumb down the mechanics.
You still want it to be difficult, but not like difficult. You want it to be difficult to master, but not impossible.
Yeah. So that's why it depends on how the real time commentary feature helps and how they play it, because that might be a pretty brilliant way of bridging that gap from not having to dumb down anything on the mechanic side of it to then also allowing an entry path for new players.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what they do with that.
I mean, looking at the graphics, I mean, while the graphics are good, I wouldn't say it's something that I'd be like, oh my lord, write home about it. But
I mean, it's supposed to be using the same engine as Devil May Cry 5, the RE engine. It's Devil May Cry 5 and like Resident Evil 7, 2, 3, and 8. But well, yeah, I can see the similarities there. It's not going for that hyper realistic that those games are going for. Not even hyper realistic, just realistic and gritty. Whereas Street Fighter 6 looks more, I don't want to say sterile, but it looks more comic booky, which I think works. Honestly, I think that works for Street Fighter 6. Is you want it to be more kind of outrageous and crazy, but that's an interesting one. I don't think we have too much to add on that. I do hope it has crossplay for one, because that also will help. It's coming out on PC, the Series Xbox consoles, not Xbox One, and PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. So that'll be interesting to see. I do hope they have crossplay, because that will definitely help that game live long. Let's see. Talked about Resident Evil 4, we talked about The Village briefly. Spider-Man coming to PC. I'm not a big Spider-Man guy.
I mean, the Spider-Man games are always fun because you get the sense of a large world and you're flying through it, and it's pretty cool. It's a
Is that gonna have the Miles Morales and whatever? I'm just gonna check here.
As I understand it, this is the
PC version will include the main story and its continued narratives and the City That Never Sleeps DLC, which will feature 3 accompanying story chapters in Peter Parker's journey. Does it not include Miles Morales?
No, because this one is mainly.
Hold on, wait. Our team's a big fan of. No, it says both. It says our team has always been big fans of work from Insomniac and partnering with them to bring Marvel's. They're talking about Marvel Spider-Man Remastered and Spider-Man Miles Morales to PC the best way we can. Okay, so I think this is Nyx's. This is one of the new studios that Sony acquired. So I have a feeling that they're going to be separate.
Yeah, it looks.
Yeah, Miles Morales. Yep. It says right here.
Is they're just remastering a previous Spider-Man title?
They're just putting it on. They're just doing the better version on PC, which makes sense. And then they're going to do Miles Morales in the fall.
What was a quality Spider-Man game at the time? So it depends.
I've never played it.
It,
I'm not a huge Spider-Man fan now. Like, I don't hate Spider-Man, but I think after all the movies and the reboots and
it depends
like
on what they change about it, because like as fun as the original Spider-Man game was, it it has definitely been dwarfed by following, games. Even the latest Spider-Man game with just mechanics of how you fight. Um,
we'll see what they do with it for
so it
sure.
depends if they keep pretty much the same mechanics, and they just improve the graphics. It's just it'll be an enjoyable experience, sure, but I feel
That's gonna make a lot of people
eh,
happy.
like I played
People
the
still want a
original one,
Bloodborne
so
though.
true.
Bloodborne on PC, we still want it.
No.
If you
Um,
don't, okay, I think we can move over Spider-Man if you have nothing else to say on that, because I think the last big one was where they ended with, and that was Final Fantasy 16.
Now, see, this is one of their games that definitely was a major, in my opinion, a major release, in just how they presented it. You have the introduction and
with
their
with
version of Todd Howard.
that's not
Uh,
Todd Howard.
their
That's
version of Todd
Yosh.
Howard.
Oh God, how do you say his name again? Yoshida Naoki. Uh, he is the director of Final Fantasy 14.
Mhm.
And
He-
well, I think this game is visually very impressive.
mhm.
The first time we saw it, it was like edgy Final Fantasy. There was blood and stuff, and I was like, ugh. And then we saw Stranger of Paradise, and I was like, that's how you do edgy Final Fantasy. Like, I'm not saying I don't have anything against this. I would like to see this game and see how it goes, but visually, I think this game is stunning.
Mm.
Like, the graphics are like out of this world. They're absolutely crazy to see the detail on some of these giant summons they were showing off, and the character models look a little less so. They're still relatively detailed, but not like they're not
I mean,
pory. They still have the anime flair.
in the whole of the gaming world, yes, there's definitely other characters that are better graphically. Um, but again, this is one of those things where it's the the level of your graphic ability or your graphics detailed is less important
I,
than your character fitting into the world. Again,
honestly, like
like
looking at these character models, this is a good like in between point between having
yeah,
to go full super realism with like every pore rendered, having them be more, I don't want to say like anime-ish, but they do look kind of anime with their things, but they're not as detailed in the face. Like their gear is very detailed, lots of like God,
oh yeah, you
these
see this.
hoods. Like I'm looking at
Was
the
it
one
you see
character
the
with the hood here.
stitching on one of the jackets?
Yeah, like the
So
details there,
mhm,
but it's like spread out over the whole model instead of just being face,
yeah,
which is kind of nice. The summons they showed off in the trailer were also kind of fantastic.
mhm.
Um, do I think this game is going to be better than Final Fantasy 15? I don't know. Final Fantasy 15 was kind of a shit show. I'm not gonna lie. This one also being timed exclusive for the PlayStation might hurt it in the long run. I think it's also going to be on PC, but I don't know. We'll see. Um,
It, they're probably eventually going to do it. Have it on PC.
I think it's PC, and it might be day and date, but it might not be. I don't know. It is Square. It's third party. It's not first party. But the one thing I really didn't like about this is they're showing off all these wicked, amazing looking fights. Like the characters just like arms and stuff are coming off. It looks crazy. There's damage numbers all over the screen and these ugly, ugly health bars. And I'm like, were you trying to show that it was gameplay by putting like these health bars on it? Like, I don't know. I I would hope you could turn off the numbers because it really kind of pulls you out of it.
Well, that's definitely one of those things that you know, developers should consider, because they're with any type of game like Final Fantasy, you your player base wavers between wanting to have that full immersion and just suck them into the story and the world, and so then, you know, the health bars, unless they're done really well, um, rip you right out of that. But then there's also people who are just like, hey, I want to see how I'm doing against this person and who to focus on,
I
as
think
just a gameplay. But
From Software's implementation of health bars and that are kind of not that intrusive on the screen. Yours is up in the corner, your stuff's on either side, and the enemy's bar's in the middle at the bottom.
yeah,
Or at the top. And it's just like, it's not that intrusive, it's kind of out of the way, but like they're showing it in this one and they're like bright colors, like one's red, one's yellow, and it's like over top of this fantastic looking model, and it looks like it's like it's a CG fight. That's what it looks like. I was like, why do we need health bars here, you know?
yeah. I mean, it looks like a looks like definite improvement to the graphics from the previous one. I like some of the scenes that they're showing here. Um, I think it looks good.
I don't know if I'm gonna be interested in the game. Like this, I don't want to be like kind of a sound like a jerk, or but I'm not that interested in what they're trying to tell story wise, and that's rough because, you know,
Well,
that's
the
kind of
hard
what
part
RPGs
with
are all about, right?
well, the hard part with Final Fantasy is that there's now 16 of them, and
Well, you don't have to play all of them. They you can play them out of order. You play whichever one you want, but
yeah, but there's still those callbacks and better understanding of the world. So with games like this, you're you release, you know, 16, and then, you know, later on they release 17. Well, the player base has already been invested because they played throughout the years all these different, you know, Final Fantasy games. So there's an element that kind of makes it difficult for people who don't play it and aren't familiar with the world to jump in and be like, oh yeah, let me play this. Um, Whereas like you could play Skyrim right out of the gate, never having seen Morrowind or I can't remember the other one now.
Oblivion,
Oblivion.
uh, was
And
it Redguard? Redguard? Or I can't remember. Never mind. I sort of see where you're coming from, but my biggest problem with Final Fantasy has been after I didn't really play any of them in the PS2 era, or like I played them in the PS1 era.
mm-hmm.
7, 8, and 9. I played. I was not a fan of 9. 7 was probably like the most interesting one for me at the time because it was this interesting sort of gap bridging game, and Final Fantasy 8 was this weird. Final Fantasy 8 was just weird. I think weird is the best place to put it because
Yeah.
it doesn't make any sense. And there was a lot of games that just don't make any sense. And then I kind of just stopped caring about Final Fantasy because like 10, the main character like plays football basically, like the Final Fantasy equivalent of football. 11 was an MMO, and 12 was not received well when it first came out.
Yeah.
And to me, it kind of like died. Like my any hype I had for the franchise kind of died. And then when 15 came out, I was kind of interested. I didn't end up picking it up till later because it wasn't finished when it came out. It was.
Well, see, that's like you look at deep storyline and huge storyline as positives in gaming, and this can be kind of under a negative because, like I said, you leave the game for a little bit, and it's just kind of like part of it just feels like, man, I don't know what the heck's going on. They're going to be talking about stuff, and I won't know who the heck anybody is. So it's always important for them to, as a dev company, to release games that kind of like their what was that chaos,
Stranger of Paradise.
yeah. Like that one. uh, I feel like anybody could get involved with that one and enjoy it without knowing much about the IP.
It's also a callback to a lot of the like it's a game for both in my opinion. And
Yeah.
honestly, Stranger of Paradise is probably one of the weirder Final Fantasy properties, but also I kind of love it. I it's
Yeah.
it's one of the ones that I have enjoyed the most of that I've played in a while. Like
Well,
I did play Final Fantasy 7 remake, and to be honest, it felt so padded and full of like we got to build up the world more, and it's like,
yeah.
but do you? But
It's like Final Fantasy, when drinking with you and let their hair down. It's just like things got
the
weird.
thing is that
but
the
they
thing
didn't
is that
take
people will
themselves
tell you
seriously.
how like long Final Fantasy 7 is, and the first game you can, like the original Final Fantasy 7, you can beat in about 40 hours. Like all the story, 40 hours. The remake is just the first section of the first disc, not even the whole first disc, because you don't even get to Juno, and it's basically 30-40 hours. It There's a lot of like padding, there's a lot of weird side quests. I understand that world building is important, but
Mhm.
you can world build without padding a game. Like
Yeah,
simple things can build a
whenever
world.
any game developer pads a game, it feels it takes away from what overall would be at least what they attempt to be a big game and a big storyline. Because like when like one of the big complaints, like to bring up Fallout 4, Preston Garvey constantly, hey, we got another settlement in need of help. It lessened the whole because it's just like, man, I just don't
There's
get
other
the
problems with
fine.
Fallout 4 in my opinion.
Oh yeah, there's definitely other problems, but it's just one
I
of
don't
those
want to
things.
go into like spoiler territory, but Fallout 4 has this problem where none of the factions are really a good choice. All of them kind of suck, and it doesn't do what New Vegas does and gives you options on how you build your alliances and get to the end. Like
Well, see, that's the thing in the Fallout world. There is no good choices.
there's no best choices, but when you only have 3 in Fallout 4, because there's the Minutemen, the Railroad, and What is the Brotherhood 2, I guess? What is 4?
So like you look at um New Vegas, right? Spoiler alert.
Kings.
You have Caesar or Kaiser. You have
New
the
California Republic.
NCR. Yep.
Yep.
And then you do have a small element of the Brotherhood of Steel, not a huge one.
Well, that's
And
huge spoilers because you can you could miss them the entire game.
yeah,
I did my
you
first
can,
playthrough. I never found them. And
and
then
then you
later I was
can,
like just wandering.
and then you can have Mr. House.
Well, there's House,
And
but there was the Boomers, there was the Kings, there were all these little like really interesting factions where as Fallout 4 had like there was the
well,
family,
yeah, those are the smaller factions. I'm talking about like
the big
the whole
factions,
world,
yeah,
the
it's
big
it's
factions.
Mr.
And,
House, NCR, and Caesar's Legion were the big three, but there were also
mhm.
smaller, and there was no Preston Garvey to tell you that there's a settlement that needs help. You just wander, and
It's
that was
just
the
House being a
thing.
dick. uh, Caesar
Well,
trying
that
to
like even when you
enslave
get to
everybody.
yeah, but like even when you get to the strip, have you ever played? Did you ever play New Vegas as a female character?
Yes.
Okay, so you know when you talk to Kaisar and he tells you that he'll make an exception for you
Yep.
because there's no women in his legion, and he had like an auto, like honestly, it was fascinating the way that the world is like built and like
Mhm.
Mr. House's plan, if you follow through most of it or like all of it, is actually really intelligent.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. But it's not a matter of there's any factions that are just absolutely irredeemable. It's just each faction has, depending on your viewpoint, a major flaw to it.
Yeah,
You know, you got Caesar's legions. Well, they fully support
discriminate
slavery
and discriminate against women.
and everything else.
Like,
Like
and
they're like, you know what we have missed? We need more slavery, and that's what Caesar's legions support. So very negative thing, but then at the same time, they're it's bringing a sense of order to the chaos that was the
the Mojave.
apocalypse in the Mojave. You have Mr. House who will entirely screw literally everybody over if need be. At any point in time, you know you are just a cog in his mechanisms or machinations just as much as anybody else is. He will nuke you if it means his plans go through just as easily as he will nuke a genuinely bad person. He had no problem with that. But
No,
brilliant plan that unless interrupt it, it
yeah,
is one that would make a major metropolis in the Mojave. You have the NCR, which is kind of like traditional old
I mean,
school society Americana,
yeah.
and including all the corruption
Yep, the corruption's
and
there, everything's there, and it's just like, do we
the
want to bring the old world
corruption,
back? And
the potential for ineptitude, which is also happens there. Like each function has aspects to it that, like I said, depending on your viewpoint, make them irredeemable
yeah,
or just distasteful.
well,
And
and then
that's always the
there's
thing with
interesting
Fallout.
characters along the way.
Hmm. Well, reason I've been thinking about it so much is they were talking about another YouTuber, Legacy Killer, was talking about the potential of when we'll see another Fallout game, because we're looking at fairly long wait for the next Elder Scrolls game. You know, the next game
But
we're probably going to see from Bethesda is Starfield, which is going to be early 2023. And then so we're looking at probably an shoot,
what if? What
unless
if?
they
Throwing
increase
throwing
their.
it out there.
Mhm.
Throwing it out there right now. What if Obsidian's working on the next Fallout? Or in Exile? Either or.
That's
Because
possible. Well, the thing you got to understand is the Obsidian that worked on New Vegas isn't there anymore.
it's not all the same people, but there are some of the people are still there that worked on it.
Some
Not
are.
everyone.
But it's one of those things that, and he brought up a good point. It's like, well, this is kind of a major intellectual property. This isn't Stray or some minor title. This is a
No, Fallout's a
major
big deal.
intellectual property, and so Microsoft has spent a ton of money to get this.
$7 billion on I don't know what you consider Fallout in that $7 billion like IP, like what that IP's worth in
Yeah,
that 7 billion, but it was definitely part of the cost. I'll tell you that much.
yeah, and so
And
it's one of those things that at a certain point, Microsoft is probably going to at least be like, hey, can we get some Fallout games working? Because I mean, look, we
I that's
we
the
own
thing though, like,
Obsidian, we
and
own
in
these other
Exile.
studios.
Well, that's the thing. That's why I was
What
saying,
if?
like, because a lot of those guys that worked on New Vegas at Obsidian, or like, there's a lot of those ex guys that went to an Exile.
Like, and not to take away the major titles from Bethesda, which isn't the goal here, but just to release some stuff for
It's not like they've never
Fallout.
given it to someone else.
Yeah,
Because the thing is that Bethesda, the team that made Fallout 4, didn't make 76. That was a completely other team, from my understanding. Because all the best guns were working on Starfield and the new creation engine.
mm,
And 76 was just something they put out there to keep them afloat while they worked on their big new magnum opus.
yeah, and
And
they're struggling. They're struggling to get
I
people to
think
play
I think
76 still, even though they have done a lot of improvements on it. I will give them that. But
I think people like it more now, but I just can't be
definitely they
bothered
like
to
it more
go
now.
back.
But it's one of those things that they're even though people like it more now, it's still a struggle for them to maintain players on it. And
I don't know
so,
what
like I said,
current
it's one of those
players
things
are.
that they need to kind of like start releasing some more Fallout games. They have all these resources behind them to do this, and
Well,
so at
the
this
Bethesda
point,
showcase is 9 days from today, so we're getting
yeah,
close. Do you think we
we
see
had. I
Fallout?
mean,
That's the question, right? Do you think
I.
we see an announcement for Fallout? Anything? I don't. If we
I mean,
do, it's not going
there's
to be
always a
Bethesda.
possibility for a surprise. There's always a possibility for a surprise, but at the same time, there haven't. From what I could tell, there hasn't been even any whispers about it. Um, so maybe they're being super tight-lipped in an industry that typically
I mean,
has
did we hear
leaks
about
out the
Fallout 70?
wazoo.
We only heard about Fallout 76 before because someone mentioned that there was going to be a multiplayer Fallout game in one of our Discords. That was the only reason we knew, like, I think a couple days ahead.
Yeah, well,
Because he was working at the booth and they prepped them on everything.
yeah, and it's just one of those things that, like, it's possible, definitely, but it's one of those things where it's possible in a world where almost everybody's either intentionally or unintentionally leaking
I
updates
don't,
about every
like,
game.
to be honest, all we've heard about from, like, the, like, leak wise from the Bethesda Microsoft side is code names for projects.
Hmm. Oh,
So
Microsoft's
one
big
of
on
the
code names. Big
oh
on
yeah,
code names.
they love their code names Scorpio and whatever
Um,
else.
but it's one of those things where
Durango.
like you have all the players that you need to do this stuff. So yeah, it would be nice to see some more Fallout games. It'd be nice. Um, I mean, at the same time, I'm willing to hold off because I mean, we all recognize that the creation engine is
Yeah, I'd rather they not use the creation engine.
horrible. But
I honestly, if Obsidian makes it, I highly doubt it would be in the creation engine. I would guess Unreal if I had to
big.
guess.
Hmm.
Not because I want to be a dick, but because the creation engine has been it's not been good. It's got a lot of issues, and I think the Outer
It's
Worlds showed how much better you could do that same kind of game with.
it's not
Uh,
as
uh,
much as it's a terrible engine. I feel like it's an engine that they have slapped enough duct tape to it that it can stand on its own without
how much
any infrastructure support.
how
Because
much Quake Quake code do you think is in the original, like the creation engine? How much?
well, the programming answers as much as absolutely necessary, and that
Yeah.
might be all of it. Programmers are notorious copy and pasters, which isn't a bad thing in programming. Don't get me wrong. That's the plus of programming. You don't have to write everything out, you know, bit by bit. You can go, this worked in this. Let me copy that and move it over here. That's the whole point of object oriented programming, is to be able to do stuff like that. Um, but it's one of those things. It feels like they kind of might have neglected the creation engine a little bit, and it's coming to bite them in the butt in the sense of whenever they're trying to do anything new, instead of it being something that they've worked on. Like for example, Unreal Engine is one of those things that they constantly are working on. Now that's their thing. It is something that they make money by having other companies use their game engine to make games. So they're constantly working on improving it. And they're not working on it to go within a specific scope. They're trying to make it be as widely available as possible. Um, Whereas Creation Engine, Bethesda's making to build their games. So unless it's something that they go, okay, this game is going to have this, they're not adding that to the Creation Engine, which is, I feel like it's an understandable course, but something that they need to kind of actively manage because anybody who's anybody would be able to see, hey, we need to have a multiplayer Fallout. This is a popular game. People would love to play this game with their friends. How do we do that? And they should have been working on adding a multiplayer feature or all the networking features to the game engine so that when they finally got to a game, it wasn't they're trying to make this multiplayer game out of whole cloth, but they're like,
Well,
okay, we
then
have a
they had all
starting
the
point
issues
that
at
we
launch because it
yeah,
didn't work,
we
and
have a starting
then
point that has been tested to a certain extent. um and that's what's happening. It seems like to me, from what I've seen of the creation engines, that they're literally, they got the creation engine, they start to make a game and they go, you know what, we really want this feature, and so they slap an update on the creation engine with duct tape and they go, okay, it works now.
yeah,
and,
it's
and so
definitely. I'm really curious what Creation 2.0 is going to be like.
yeah, well, that's what I was
How
saying
much of
because
everything's in it,
Starfield's
but
using creation 2.0. Is that
that's what they've said. It's Creation 2.0. So
so? If that's truly what's going on, and Creation 2.0 isn't just they wrote Creation 2.0, pulled out some more duct tape, slapped that on Creation Engine 1.0. As long as they're, like it's new, I would be willing to wait on the next Fallout because the Creation
I
Engine
don't know.
is really the factor that holds them back a bit as it stands
Possibly,
currently. Um,
but that's the thing. An engine's just a means to an end, and well,
mhm.
does have it does have all sorts of interesting implications. What you can get done. Is it worth waiting for the engine to be ready? Because I feel like Starfield will use a lot of the same things that a new Fallout game would, but that's the thing. Like, isn't there a Fallout show in production?
I
Because you're gonna want a game.
believe
I think that's there is. It began production this year, so we're probably gonna see it soon. Ish. Apparently, there was one in 2019. Oh, it was a web series.
let's see. Prime. It's going to be on Amazon Prime, and it is.
It's gonna be interesting to see. So I think if you have a TV series that's coming out soonish, you're gonna want a game to go along with it
Alright, it's
if you
going
can manage.
is alongside Bolton Goggins. Who is that? Okay, okay. All right, so it's apparently two of their leads are Walton Goggins and
From
Ella
Wisconsin, don't you know?
Purnell. Uh, and let's see here. He's Walton Goggins is known for his parts in Invincible. Well, his Last Days of Ptolemy Gray is the latest one. Let's see here. Uh, what's one that I've seen him in?
I'm not sure who this character is at all, who this actor is at all. And the thing is that I have nothing against them making a Fallout show, but I think that's an indication that there is going to be a Fallout game in production, probably to come out around when that show either starts airing or finishes airing. It's pretty close, within I'd say about 3 to 6 months. There's probably something Fallout coming, whether or not it's a brand
It
new game or just like a remaster of one of the older ones, like 3 or New
it's
Vegas.
possible. If they do a New Vegas 2.0, they need what they really, and it might be impossible for them to do, but it would be really awesome if they could do it. Make it so that like whatever choices you made in New Vegas 1 can kind of carry over.
Oh,
Um,
like they did, like the way they did with Witcher 3, where
yeah,
your choices of Witcher 2, even if you didn't have the game, you
you,
talked about it with the guy and he's like, this is what happened. I was like, that didn't happen.
yeah, and that would be kind of interesting to see. It would allow connectivity, and it would be something that you wouldn't have to have an updated creation engine, because then it's just a matter of you're telling a story. Um, it would be interesting to see, and I know the modding community is working on it, but it'd be interesting to see a main release from somewhere else. Like, I mean, we've seen like one on the East Coast, which is DC. With 76, we have Appalachia. With
I think
New
they could totally
Vegas, of
do
course,
another
you have
country that isn't
Vegas.
the US.
Yeah. Well,
They
like
could do part of
they
Canada.
they one of the modding community, some of the groups in the modding community, they're working on Fallout London. And that's interesting. And it would be interesting to see to now there's some whispers about there being possibly a Fallout San Francisco. Because back when New Vegas was in development, one of the things that they were going to say was that San Francisco was wiped out, and Bethesda was like, "Hey, can you change that and not have that be something that's said, have it be not mentioned that San Francisco is wiped out." So that leads one to think that maybe Bethesda's has somebody in the brain trust working on a San Francisco. But at the same time, like I said, it'd be interesting to see other parts of the world. Um, and you could do that without too much updating to the engine at all. You still have the major work of everything else, but it'd just be interesting to see some more Fallout games.
I definitely think that more Fallout games should come, but the thing is, they also have Wasteland 2 under their banner.
Mhm.
So you've got Wasteland, you've got Fallout, which is like the two, I'd argue, the big post-apocalyptic RPG, CRPG games. Now, oh, did you watch Skulls? That's the Warhammer video game showcase. It was earlier this week. I want to say Tuesday or Wednesday. There's a Warhammer 40K CRPG coming. What's it called again?
Rogue Trader.
Yes, Rogue Trader. That's the one.
Turn-based combat. I mean, well, see, the thing is,
Rogue Trader's like a tabletop game that they have. So for them to make I think it's the first time they've done a CRPG for Warhammer. And I know you might not be the biggest fan of Warhammer. I just didn't know if you'd seen Skulls and had seen
I hadn't had a chance to see Skulls, but I do like the Warhammer world, and I played a couple of their games.
Darktide's coming, and that's like that's gonna be on Game Pass, so we can play that. It's co-op shooter. It's like Vermintide, but in space. No Skaven.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm interested to try that out later. I think it was this year. I'll check so. Quick. Darktide. Did we get a release date for it? It is. We have a release date? I'm just looking here. It says September 13th. So that was on Steam. September 13th is the day for Darktide. I'm very interested to try that out. I thought Vermintide was okay. Vermintide 2 was better, but still not like the best sort of game. I hope that Darktide is a little bit better. What else was there that was announced? There's like the CRPG is probably the one that I think you care about the most. If you played Space Marine, there's a second one coming, and they showed not more gameplay, just talked about it more with the voice actor. My brother was really excited because and there's like this side-scrolling orc shooter. Did you play Broforce or seen Broforce?
That sounds familiar. What up?
It's basically Contra, but you can blow everything up, and all the characters are action movie stars, like action movie
Yes.
characters.
Yes.
It's really dumb, and you get to the end of the level, and you get on the chopper, then everything blows up because America. Broforce is hilarious thing. That's I saw. I think it's Orc Luda Shuda or something, because it's orcs with a K.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh man, this looks like Broforce, but with orcs. This would be a fun way to blow in the afternoon, you know? Just play a couple rounds.
Oh yeah.
Was there any other?
Well, see, the thing is that there's some old school people, because you mentioned Wasteland. There's some old
Yeah.
school Fallout fans who are like, Fallout was better when it was isometric 3D, and I get it. I like the changes that they made when it got to being a first-person shooter.
I'm not. I think both games have their merits.
Oh yeah,
I think the problem with the
definitely.
first person one was melee weapons were basically useless because
Mhm.
depth perception in the creation engine is garbage.
Oh yeah.
That's why I couldn't play Skyrim, because swords sucked in it.
The
They were
thing
literally
is,
trash.
like, I want to. It's tempting to be like, I want them to go to like Unreal Engine 5, because I think they would be able to just fly
The
with
only
it.
reason I said the only reason I said that they would go to something like Unreal Engine was
Hmm.
if Obsidian was making it and they were working on it as soon as the Bethesda deal closed, they started working on it.
Yeah,
They're not
but
going to wait for Creation Engine 2.0 to be ready to
yeah.
go. They're probably just going to go use whatever. I only used Obsidian because they made New Vegas.
Well, I mean, just comparatively, a basic Unreal Engine 5 game versus Creation Engine game, the graphics will just be a monumental leap forward.
Like regular Creation Engine, yes. That's why I'd be like, yeah, totally. If I was making a project,
The thing is, I still like, if they drop mod support from what they're doing, they will lose out at the end of the day.
true.
Um,
But I want to point out that there's a lot of documentation and things for Unreal Engine
oh
that
yeah,
it would not be like honestly, there's some games that use Unreal Engine 4 even that are, I would say, not don't run perfectly ideal. I can think of a couple off the top of my head, and
hmm
you can go in with it and edit an INI file and hack a better field of view, uh, hack better resolution scaling, like what internal resolution the game runs at. Because there's some games that just have terrible option menus because maybe their programmers don't know what they're doing. Or they just were like, they did a lazy port. Unreal Engine has a lot of documentation on it so people could figure out how to do things.
oh yeah.
But
Well,
I'm going to be honest with you, I don't know how many Unreal Engine games exist out there that have just mods.
yeah,
That, like, do you
and
have to enable that in the engine?
well, see, the thing is, and this is how amazing the modding community is. The modding community of any game, it is they'll mod anything. They will, like, Cyberpunk's 2077 has no mod support. They're modding the heck out of it. They're not doing it to the degree that Skyrim is modded, but they're attempting it. The big part, there's two parts to it. Is number one, it, you have the tacit, like, verbal support of the Bethesda, saying yes, we support our modding community, and having that level of support means that then people are interested in it. And then there's the release of what was it, GAC?
Oh,
Or
hold on. There's literally a thing here. If you wish to add mod support to your UE4 game, I just looked up UE4 because it's here. We recommend use of Unreal Engine 4 engine mod browser. Manage plugins created by someone made it, so you can just put it in
yeah,
to the game. This is an option. I just wanted to look it up to see if it was a thing because I've seen a few games that run an Unreal Engine that have mods,
hmm
but I've seen very few Unreal Engine games
well,
that openly support them in the menu.
I mean,
Like
the
if you
thing is
remember,
like there's game developers who are actively anti mods to their game, and so that's
yes,
why a big part of it is having Bethesda be like, yes, modding community, have fun,
it's
and
important. I agree.
and then the secondary part is that actual infrastructure support, the well, I think it's called GAC. I'm not a modder, so
Yeah, it
I'm
was the
terrible
GEC, the
at this.
Garden of Eden Creation Kit.
Yeah.
It's
And
GEC.
so having that released means every modder who ever wants to just jump into it has a starting point.
Well, that's the
Now,
thing though. Like, if you think about it, old PC gaming, like a lot of them, Warcraft 2 even had a map editor. I don't remember what the first game did, but you could make your own maps. It was just a separate program. You booted it up and
yeah,
you adjusted tiles and you could put certain level of resources. It would tell you how much space. Like, and they existed. And you could
yeah.
mod things like that. You could build your own. And then as we went along, games got less and less moddable,
hmm
or less and less okay with users making their own content.
Yeah.
Because if you remember, Kasali worked on this little thing called was he Plutonium? Doom Plato it was in the final Doom. And then he went to go work on Half-Life.
hmm
And that's the thing. It's like there's some of like the old modders, like I'm talking like Level Lord and Level Lord Grey and people like that who made mods for like or maps for games like Sin, or did just fun ones for whatever reason for
hmm
like Doom and that people could just download and use off of message boards just
Yeah.
because it was. And that's the thing, like mods for multiplayer games existed forever. Like a lot of them lived or died off of the mod community. Like I
hmm
think Quake 3 probably had like a bajillion maps and things. I
Yeah.
didn't really ever play it that actively when it was like booming on PC, partly because I didn't have internet at the time, because it was very, very uncommon in my area to get internet. It was hard. So internet was not the best. Um, but like even if you look at something like Doom 3,
hmm
you boot it up and you could literally just load mods.
Oh
It's
yeah.
in the menu because that's how they did like the expansions and stuff. And there's unofficial expansions. There's
hmm
all sorts of things people did. And then the farther along we got, the less mods there were, less open companies were, I think, to mods.
Yeah. They wanted their vision to be out there, and the thing is, like Fallout 76, if they actively supported mods like they did with Fallout 4, Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas, then Fallout 76 wouldn't be struggling near as much. for players, because there'd be, I mean, look at Ark. Ark hasn't been releasing near as much content as Bethesda has been releasing for Fallout 76, but you can mod the heck out of an Ark server and have your own game. You need to play it single player like you want, or you can play it with a bunch of friends, or you can play it in a completely open server. And so it's one of those things, like, yeah, I want to see Fallout games come out. I want to see, of course, the Elder Scrolls games come out. I understand it's going to take some time, and that's fine. That happens. But then it's just a matter of make sure you keep supporting the modding community, because they very much
It
make up a
seems
huge basis.
like mods for Fallout 76 do exist, but they're locked behind a paywall.
Mm-hmm. And to me, that's not supporting the modding community. Modding community is entirely like, hey,
Well,
look at
because I
this
don't
thing
know,
I
can
made.
are private servers still locked under? Because I haven't played it forever. Yeah,
Private
because in
servers, you can get a
2020 they
private
were still
server, but you have to get it through.
Fallout first, right?
Yeah,
Yeah, fuck that. I'm
yeah.
sorry, but that's ridiculous. You should be able to. That was another thing you used to be able to do for games. You could run your own servers in your house, rent out a server in other spaces. You could just run your own game servers for popular games.
Hmm?
And I do not know why that went away, especially for PC and whatever, because yeah, the company doesn't want to run these servers anymore, but if people want to pay to host them,
Hmm?
why would you stop them? Like, yeah, you're not supporting the game anymore. You don't have to troubleshoot it anymore, but like, let these guys have the servers keep going. You can still play Quake 3 Arena. Like, you still can. That game is old. Daikatana.
Hmm?
You can still play online. I don't know if it plays servers or just like peer to peer, but I don't understand why private game hosting became like this big faux pas in the. I guess this has been the hunt for the the live service money.
Yeah, there is an attempt to kind of move towards live service money, um, or software as a service, and it's just one of those things that is really, if Bethesda chooses the right path, they can pursue both without angering
I
either
have
side of it.
I have some faith that Microsoft isn't gonna like stop mod support and will support it a bit because
I don't think
like you can
Microsoft
download
would.
DuckStation basically on the Microsoft Store with a slight workaround. You go into your web browser, you put in an address, you get a launcher, like a web browser. You click on a thing, it goes to the Microsoft Store, and you can download DuckStation. And now you have a almost functional
Well,
PlayStation 1 emulator.
well,
You
that's
can't
the thing.
include.
Go ahead.
You can't load anything until you put a BIOS on it because, which is weird. Because didn't Sony add the BIOS to one of the repositories for a PlayStation emulator that they used for the PlayStation Mini, and then promptly shot themselves in the foot by using PAL versions of games?
Not sure.
I remember
Um,
the PAL versions, but I remember them also like adding the PlayStation source code to an emulator repository to use
I j-
that
I
for
just know
this.
between Microsoft and Sony, the company that more supports and is accepting of mods, Microsoft wins by a landslide on that one.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the thing. I don't think that they're gonna care. Like unless it's one of their first party PvP or like
yeah.
I can't see Gears of War, for instance, supporting like mods for some things. And the thing is, when they acquire Blizzard, they're gonna have to deal with some interesting things because, like, there's a
Firing
bunch
all of
of
their upper management.
oh my god, I don't know what's going on. What's gonna go on with that? Something's gonna happen. Like, I
Like
don't know,
if I
Bethesda.
were Microsoft as I was purchasing this, it'd be like, all right, I'm gonna have to fire this guy, this person, this person, this person, this
I don't know if it's
person.
like I can fire all these people, or more like I've gotta figure out what the hell happened and figure out
You,
who is
well,
screwing up things.
well, it's
Like,
one of those things like you can't just like it. You almost have Activision. The horrible part about it is it's so screwed up in its culture that you can't even like have it be a restructuring where people quietly leave. You almost have to make examples of people because of just how egregious some of the stories we're hearing about what has been going on. You
yeah,
have to
it
like if Microsoft wants to turn Activision around and just like, all right, this is in the past, this is going to be our future. They kind of need to go in like even better if Phil strides in and just starts pointing people out and go, you get out, you get out, and unceremoniously just removes people who they can obviously don't just like all right, everybody above this position is fired. I'm not saying something like that. You
no.
don't want to fire somebody who has nothing to do with it, but
I
you
think
definitely
a lot of the original bad actors are gone, but
mhm.
there were also uh decent people that got kicked out in that. Like I think it was Jalen Brack. Is that
Oh
how you
yeah,
pronounce his name? Now
well,
the thing is, I don't know this guy personally. I am friends with people on Twitter. I'm not gonna oust anyone or use things who have met the man personally and worked under him and said he was one of the best people who was there. He always fought for workers' rights and whatever, but he had
hmm
like resting bitch face basically because someone said something bad about him, and I don't know the man personally, and he was like apparently a very good manager and a very good at running Blizzard, and then he got
yeah.
scapegoated when all this stuff happened. Like the thing is, if you're the guy on the top, you don't always know everything that's going on underneath you. It's really hard to know everything. If the management structure isn't working because they're supposed to report up, and there's a problem with that management structure, and they're going to report up false or misleading information, you're going
hmm
to assume everything's hunky dory.
yeah.
And even
Well,
if you have like HR people, it
hmm
it just there's so many points of failure in my opinion with that sort of model having like one dude on top and
hmm
ever reports up to another dude who reports up to him. It feels like broken telephone kind of deal.
well, the thing is whenever you never want to encounter a situation like what has been going on with Activision, but when you do encounter it and it's as bad as what Activision had going on, you're going to have it's one of those things where it, it, it's it's something where some schmutz gets on everybody's shoes. um and it
Yeah.
doesn't matter whether you were the person wading through all the schmutz, or you were just the person standing off the side trying to make sure your team was able to do their job without any harassment. Um, you're gonna there's gonna be some people who are innocent bystanders in this that get caught up. Um, it's one of those things. I'm just saying, like from what I'm seeing, it became somewhat of a uh, infected culture within Activision, and that's what you got to combat. And the only way you can really combat that is by like coming in there like strong arm style. I would even argue like their best bet if they don't feel like they can really pick out individual managers very well, if they come in here, walk in, go, okay, now we own Activision, and then escort the CEO out of the building.
I think
Like
Bobby's gonna
it,
leave. I think he's
it,
gonna leave, and he's gonna be like, "It was always my plan to leave,"
well,
even if it's like, I. There's no way he stays. Afterwards, there's
there's
zero
definitely
way.
no way he stays, but it's one of those things like if you if you do it quietly, you risk allowing um that that corrupted culture to still exist. Um
I don't think Bobby Kotick leaves in a way that is graceful or quiet.
it has to be loud, and it has to be front and center stage.
No,
And,
I think he's gonna
this
make a
isn't
big deal about it, and he's gonna
there
be
can
like, "I wish you all the best," and then a bunch of people are gonna come forward and be like, "That guy, he did this," and it's gonna be messy. It is going to be so messy because there are probably horror stories about that man.
well,
I
here's the
would
thing.
not be surprised.
Even if he is completely innocent of all the bad stuff, even if he is the CEO of the company, he in that case, if he isn't serving penance for his crimes, he can at least act as an example that this is an unacceptable culture. The big point is to move forward from this in a way that, of course, the stuff that has been going on at Activision isn't still going on. And in order to do that, you've got to you kind of got to scare the
Well,
bejesus
they
out of
have
everybody. Be
right
like, hey,
now
the CEO
they
is the top man of the company, but even he got
he's
ousted
not immune.
because of this.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not immune to this. But they did have um uh so they closed one of the lawsuits with, I think it was the EEOC, the California Labor Board or whatever.
Mhm.
I think it's EEOC. I might be wrong on that. It's Employment and Housing, I think is what it stands for. Something like that. Whatever. They closed a lawsuit with one of the firms that had sued them over it, and they had to bring on someone to keep them in line, basically, on their under their own payroll. As part of the agreement, is there's someone there to keep them in line,
Mhm.
to make sure none of this crap's happening. Someone's there. They're talking to people. They're seeing who gets owed money, who's gonna actually get paid out from the settlement money,
Mhm.
things like that. And Activision has to pay them out of pocket,
Yeah.
basically, for this person to be on payroll.
Gotcha.
That's apparently, from what I understand, this is normal procedure for a company of the size of Activision Blizzard.
Yeah. You have to have someone
So,
administer stuff.
yeah. Now, whether or not this person does a good job, this isn't someone that Activision got to decide. It was someone that the I believe it's the EEOC. Again, I might have gotten the name wrong. Don't shove down my throat. I don't live in California. That might have they gets to choose who gets appointed, or there's like one or two, or there's a few candidates. I don't understand the hiring process 100%, but I understand the idea behind it is you have someone who's a third party who was not there before, and is only on payroll now as an advisor to this agency to make sure that they keep their side of the agreement that was made with said agency.
Okay, you were very close. It's EEOC, and it stands for the U.S. Equal Employment Opportunity Commission.
So close. I was so close.
Good enough. Good enough. I mean, good enough for government work. It's close enough.
It's
But yeah, a neutral third-party equal employment opportunity consultant overseen by the EEOC, and then they'll start doing audits on pending and current complaints to determine the effectiveness of handling of complaints. So basically, it's kind of like, and I don't want anybody thinking that this is like, egregious overreach by anything, because the fact of the matter is, this is, what, and I hope this is the case, but what has gone on in Activision, it's one of those things like individual aspects of it you might see throughout the industry, but all together in one company
oh my god,
is
yes. That's the thing. Like
ridiculous.
because there was accusations going around about Microsoft executives, and I'm like, I don't think they're gonna stay at Microsoft executive very long if they're treating people like that, because Satya Nadella does not take kindly to that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
Microsoft is, to be fair, if you go back all the way to the start of the Xbox, is not a company that didn't foster like egos. Like, Bill Gates had quite the ego and was quite the slave driver.
Well, you got to understand at what stage somebody is part of a company. Bill Gates was a part of building the company up, and in any company you want the man at top to be, or man or woman at top to be that type of mentality, because that's how you get to a company that is as big as Microsoft, that's able to do all the things that Microsoft's able to do. Now that Microsoft is where they are, it's more a matter of, okay, you don't want somebody doing something stupid, number one, because if you're going to fail on your own merits, not because it, everyone decided that they need to start do all the stuff that you see at Activision. I'm still like, I'm still floored at hearing some of the stories of what's been going on at Activision.
It's been crazy, and then hearing the confessions and like seeing the tweets that, like, you're seeing less of them now, but seeing people talk about their bad experiences with Bobby himself, or
like, understand, when I say individually you might find some of those things throughout the industry, I don't even mean the more extreme stuff. The more extreme stuff would be like shocking anywhere in the industry.
I mean, you mean like Ubisoft? Do you remember when Ubisoft was literally protecting rapists and sexual predators?
No, like, what, didn't somebody like threaten to cut somebody's head off at Activision if they talked?
I know a lady killed herself over what had happened. Like, and
it's just like, what the effing hell?
Oh, for sure. It's absolutely crazy. And I agree. Like, I don't know. Microsoft has quite the issue taking them over, for sure.
Yeah.
I am sure 100% that they have a plan. Like,
yeah.
or they are building a plan. They would not offer all that money. They probably saw, well, actually, they saw blood in the water, right?
Mm-hmm. They probably saw blood in water, saw the deal.
Activision was bleeding, right?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, did you Hoglaw has this great video explaining what happened because he goes through the documents. Microsoft hustled them hard. Like 70 billion sounds like a lot of money for us. It's like it's an unfathomable amount of money for a person like us. Like we could live our lives like probably like 10 or 15 times over on 70 billion dollars, right? Like and live decently. But
Mm-hmm.
that number is pennies on the dollar compared to what Activision was worth even just a year prior. Like
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like half off, or it's like a third of what they were worth, share to share wise. I'm not 100% sure on that. You'd have to check the numbers, but like $70 million, and it's a deal.
Mm-hmm.
But they hustled them. They closed the deal in just over a month
Yeah.
because the thing is, Bobby wants out.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby 100% wants out, and
Bobby wants out because he knows if he sticks in much longer, he's going to be run out of town on a rail.
I don't. Again, I don't want to. I can't. I have heard some stuff internally that I was told not to repeat, and I'm not going to. But
Mm-hmm.
after the acquisition was public, his attitude towards employees changed a lot.
Oh yeah.
I will leave it at that. I've read some internal emails that are kind of disturbing, but
Yeah. It is it's ridiculous.
it is insane. It's insane to see uh some of the things that have happened from this, and personally it sucks for anyone who had to go through this crap,
Oh yeah.
and who has to go through this crap, and I hope that any of the good people, because I know for sure there's a lot of people who are at Activision and like sections of Activision and Blizzard that do their job, and they care about uh the IP and the games they're working on. They're like their baby. They love
Mm-hmm.
it.
Oh, certainly. I mean, you get to, you know, go apply for a job at a company with as big of a name as Activision or Blizzard, and and you're going to draw a lot of
Well,
very passionate, um, genuinely interested in the
Blizzard was
intellectual property people.
Blizzard was basically like the PC gaming equivalent, or even just the gaming equivalent at the time of Disney.
Hmm.
They didn't release games all the time, but when they did, they were like
Good soup.
masterpieces. They were like benchmarks. Like the stuff they did was crazy cool, like
Hmm.
genre defining, industry defining. Maybe they didn't do it first, but they did it better. And that was the god honest truth for the longest time. Like Blizzard did not miss until more recently, actually.
It's just a matter, like, to see, like, this is the reason why it's important that Microsoft do something about this is because this is beyond just like, party A who is socially inept and doesn't, understand how to read the room, says something to party B that is sexual harassment, and obviously gets offended by that. This isn't like the basic level sexual harassment stuff. This is well beyond that. And to get to that, that requires, you know, management not having a sense of, you know, how to properly foster a team that's working towards a common goal. It requires a series of people in positions of power to support this type of activity. It is beyond just like I said, it is beyond someone saying something untoward towards another person and going, "Oh, I'm sorry, I just don't understand, and I don't have a filter between my brain and my mouth." Like that stuff's still inexcusable, but it's one of those things like when that isn't addressed, and then all the other things that we're hearing about it not only isn't being addressed, but is possibly being actively participated in by those upper management. That's a whole company wide culture that is infected. And that's why Microsoft, like the settlement with the EEOC will definitely help kind of alleviate that. But to think of that's kind of like intensive care unit stuff that they're doing.
Oh yeah, that was
Like
the
Microsoft needs to
Activision
be the
wanted
doctor
to.
coming in and go, this leg isn't infected, we need to remove it. Like
I
that's the
it is
level
going to
that
be. This story is going to be interesting for like quite a while because like there's been a lot of news this year in particular about Blizzard just being like Activision Blizzard, sorry, being terrible and doing terrible
Mhm.
things and stupid things, ridiculous things that make no sense when you're like on the cusp of just being gone. Like upper management's going to be gone soon. You get your money and you can just fly off into the sunset. And I'm sure most of the high ranking execs have golden parachutes like Bobby Kotick. Do I think it's good? I know you want it to be messy, but I don't know if it will be. I really don't
I
know.
don't think it will be, but it's something like the whenever I approach a problem, the go to is to try and find the most efficient, e- effectively painless way to deal with it. And the thing is if you remove the bad actors quietly, you definitely remove the people who are doing bad, certainly, and they will no longer do bad at your company anymore. But like I said, the problem is this was so widespread across so many different levels of management, all the way possibly to the top, that you're combating more than just bad actors. You're combating possibly a toxic company culture. And so the only way you really have that you can like efficiently deal with that is be at least with one or two instances be absolutely loud and messy, because you need to kind of
Maybe
make that
internally they
statement.
will be like, they'll be a little bit loud,
Like
but
Bobby Kotick goes out to lunch, they pack his office up and meet him at the door. Level, like, yeah, it's quiet, but everyone saw that stuff go down. Go, oh, they're
yeah,
talking about it at the water cooler level. I mean, it's
honestly, it's gonna be interesting when he leaves. It
like,
really
obviously,
will
I'm not
be.
saying like they should tar and feather him, but it's one of those things they
Someone's
need
gonna
to
want to though.
they need to they need to send a message, because it from all I've seen that has been going on, that
I wonder who's
there's
gonna be put in charge of Activision after he is gone. Is it gonna be someone from Microsoft, or is it gonna be someone internally?
they find the Kratos most looking MFer at Microsoft and they put him in charge, or her in charge. Just the
Uh,
most angriest
have you
looking
seen? I say
RBH
that's the
or
that's the
RBF.
thing though. Like I really like a lot of the executives they have at the Xbox side of Microsoft.
Hmm.
Uh, we actually see them a lot, which is kind of interesting compared to uh other companies. Like you see some of them with like Nintendo, but with Sony, I don't know how many people know any of the heads of certain things. Like some of them you can probably find them, but they don't get, I don't want to say dragged out, but
Hmm.
like you know Aaron Greenberg though.
Yeah.
Like Aaron Greenberg, head of marketing. See him all the time. Jason Ronald,
Hmm.
the engineer with the epic beard. I love that man. He is so passionate about his work. I love listening to him talk about doing things. I hate when they get him to talk to someone who
Hmm.
doesn't have like a basic grasp on what they do, and he has to explain basic things. I'm like, no, come on, tell me the nitty gritty. I want to know. I want to know.
Yeah.
And that's the
It's.
thing.
I mean, if any company has the tools already at hand, Microsoft definitely would. They have the experience of this not being their first acquisition. They also have a huge pool of managers and project managers, etc., that they can
Yeah,
put in. It's like I said, it's just a matter of, it's one of the things I thought about, because it, to get to this level of a absolutely horrendous activity, it's more than just somebody who's a bad employee,
oh
or a
for
group of
sure.
somebody's. It
It's a
requires a culture that's in that company that says this is okay.
Yeah.
And so that's, like, if you're combating that, you kind of, you removing an individual, yes, certainly removes that individual from being a problem in your company. But if their activity infected the culture, then you're combating something completely different. Um,
Yeah, cutting the head off the snake will definitely help.
yeah.
That being Bobby Kotick, but it is going to be interesting to see how Microsoft handles this. I'm pretty sure I could guarantee you right now, maybe not right now this second, but there are people who are working at Microsoft to uh, have a plan for what happens when they
Mhm.
take over. So it's not crazy. Like there's going to be a lot of, they go in, they assess. I'm sure there's still there's communication between the teams. Maybe like there'd be some still. Like there
Um,
be the teams would report something like when a game's coming. You have to let the platform holder know, right? Regardless, they would
mhm.
know certain amount of projects coming ahead of time. Maybe not completely and utterly,
Yeah.
like
Well,
not
for
super
that matter,
early.
anytime you commit company resources towards something, a memo goes out or goes up the chain of command, to be
Yeah,
like, okay, this is what our team is working on, and
what's that's what I'm saying is there'd be a certain amount of, there'd be liaisons at both companies that would talk
Mhm.
on a regular basis, like between even just game, because you don't just put a game out like because there's patches like basically weekly for Warzone,
Mhm.
so you'd have to, you know, you have to push those updates. There's people talking with other people. I'm sure that Microsoft has a very solid idea what the teams at Activision Blizzard are working on, what they have
they
coming down the pipeline, because
they
that would have been
may.
part of the acquisition agreement, like to make a deal. Is you'd have to send them like, you know, what are you working on, what are your assets that you have right now, because they would know more or less what's going on. But like, could you imagine you're Bobby Kotick and you get a phone call from Phil Spencer, right? And he's like, yo, the big guy wants a word. I don't care who you are. The CEO of Microsoft is a big fucking deal.
Oh yeah. Well, the thing is that is reason possibly for concern is because what Microsoft would have to do in regard to Activision is different than what they would normally like their normal activity. Like
Yeah,
Microsoft
this is
owns
gonna be
Bethesda, but Microsoft isn't all up in Bethesda's business.
no. This one's gonna be much more hands on. This is gonna be very interesting
Yeah.
because I don't think this is the first time they're going to. This is not gonna be the last time or the first time they're gonna acquire someone who has issues
Mhm.
internally. And do I think they handle this with 100% grace? Probably not.
Yeah.
Because like Bethesda, the Bethesda acquisition was a lot different because Bethesda was private.
Hmm.
ZeniMax Online Entertainment was a private company, and they made an offer, and the owners wanted to get out,
Hmm.
and they sold. Like it was big deal. So a lot of the stuff that we saw happen with the Activision one, like it was like 4 or 5 months later they voted. Like the board voted
Hmm.
on selling. One guy didn't vote. One guy was like, "No, we shouldn't," and everyone else was like, "Yeah, we should. Just want out."
Yeah.
I kind of don't blame a lot of the investors
Well,
of Activision.
yeah. It's I mean the like I said, it's just a matter of like it. Microsoft really is kind of in a position where they can't just leave Activision to its own devices because now that they're owned by Microsoft, what they do can reflect on Microsoft. Beforehand, they were just another company in the same field as Microsoft.
It's still
Um,
funny that Phil goes out. It's like we're assessing our relationship with Activision. 2 months later, we're buying Activision. It's just I honestly, it's crazy to think that that's what happened, right? Like this is legitimately a thing that happened.
yeah,
But um, that'll be this is gonna be a fun story to follow for a while. Like it's still interesting. Like there's so much you could say about it, and there's so many
well,
different
yeah. It, it's
avenues.
it's the interesting aspects of seeing all the legal machinations go through. The tragic parts is of course less fun because you know
Yeah,
at that point then you're talking about the human cost of things
yes,
and
and that's been
that's always messy and you don't want to see it happen uh really ever um and so it's one of those things where it's like it
well. That's the other thing though. Is like Activision lately has made some really dumb decisions.
oh yeah,
Um, like
they're probably too busy screwing around in the background to make right ones.
I guess like when they're like, well, these IPs aren't that useful. Like, but, like Crash 4 comes out, sells I think over 1 million copies. Switch version came out later and it didn't quite meet expectations. And then Toys for Bob are working on Warzone content. Like, I get that Warzone's this big money making free to play machine, but
Mm.
you still need those single player all ages games. Like putting your best, I would argue one of the best studios you have for making those kind of games. And being now you can go work on Call of Duty Warzone because we need more content made for this. It's just shitty.
Mhm.
And I really wonder, like, when that deal closes later this year or early next year, that's what it's looking like it's going to close.
Mhm.
Is this fall or late in the winter of this, well, yeah, late in the winter of March, whatever, maybe almost summertime next year. Like, what are they gonna announce? Like, are they gonna do what they did with Bethesda and have a sit down with everyone? You know, the deal gets approved. Here's the closing date. They set up like a fireside chat with Aaron Keller of the Overwatch team, and we're gonna see other people from other teams. Like, we're gonna see the leads of like Toys for Bob, and it's like, what are we gonna do? Because I'm sure as soon as the ink is dry, not even the ink is gonna still be wet, and they're gonna have the takeover date. They're gonna walk in there, and I think there's gonna be a lot of stuff that's gonna change. Because Microsoft doesn't need. How many service games do they have? Like Grounded, Flight Sim, I guess, because it's kind of a live service. Sea of Thieves, whatever the next Gears is, Halo. Like that's a lot already, right? Are you gonna want? You're gonna keep Warzone going, obviously, but are you gonna put as much resources into service games now that you have six? We know there's a Warzone 2 coming, but
Well, that's the thing. It depends on how Microsoft decides to proceed with Activision and how they're going to deal with Activision. Because Microsoft's main goal in all these acquisitions is to get more content for their service.
yeah.
And the direct thing is if you have more content from your service, there is more value to people joining Game Pass.
Well, Game Pass but I do have to give Microsoft credit here because there's other services. There's no gaming service like Game Pass, but there are other services where you can only get these games in this service. That's it.
Hmm.
Microsoft's at least selling them separately. I have to give them props for that. You get the choice. You can buy the game full price, or you can just pay to play it monthly with Game
Yeah.
Pass. And
Well,
honestly, that is very refreshing.
hmm well, the thing it, like I said, Microsoft's normal way of dealing with companies that they acquire is like, okay, you're our company now, and go do your stuff. Don't lose a ton of money. Like that. That's their
I don't know if
concern.
they even care about losing the money on games.
Not losing money, but they'll care if you lose a ton of money because then you're making a game that is kind of like the metric that you can use that somebody is making a game that is not valued and thus doesn't increase the value of Game Pass. Um, Beyond that, like the thing is
Battletoads? Did
like
Battletoads sell like gangbusters? I don't know if it did. What's another game that I think was like first party esque and didn't sell gangbusters? Uh, See, I can't use like stuff like Recore or Sunset Overdrive because that was pre-Game Pass. I'm trying to think of a game that came out. Where's Tell Me Why? That's
Oh,
been free twice now on the oh, it's free right now. If you are interested to play Tell Me Why, you can go on the Microsoft Store on PC or Xbox. I believe it has Play Anywhere and get the game for free. The first couple chapters were interesting. The third one I never finished because uh I don't know. It seemed drama bomb esque.
well, see, like what I'm saying was with Activision is it depends on if Microsoft decides, okay, we're going to go ahead, clean house, make sure everything doesn't blow up in our face later on, and then they might leave and go, okay, do your thing, and then it's up to Activision about how they allocate the resources. Still,
Okay,
it
I'm
if it's a
gonna
matter of
ask
they
the
go
real
in and
question.
go ahead.
The real question. The IP. There is a ton of IP that is co-owned by Bethesda and Activision. How many of these games do we see come back from the dead? I'll give you an example. Uh, Raven did work on Heretic 2. It got delisted from the site because Bethesda and Activision couldn't. It got delisted from Steam because they couldn't agree on things.
Hmm.
Hexen 2, also the same deal. Uh, I think No One Lives Forever is just a IP that Activision owns now because they own a bunch of like old Interplay IP too.
Hmm. Um.
How much the stuff just comes back? Like, because I know there's a bunch of it that GOG wanted to bring back, and GOG
Well,
does have a direct line to
other than being able to sell those games again or share those games, what you're talking about now is a limit on the resources necessary to develop a game, even if it's an already established IP. Because you know, even as big as Activision is, even as big as Bethesda is, um, they're still pushing the limit at developing the games that they're currently developing with the team size that they currently have.
for
Now,
sure.
is it possible that they, one or both of them might, get a deal with Microsoft, be like, hey, we're trying to, work on these games to come out, and Microsoft will be like, oh, I'm excited about this. Let me foot some of the bill. You can hire a bigger team, or another team, to start working on some of this stuff.
I mean,
That's possible, definitely. But right now, the
here's some
limit
fun
is just
ones.
how many people, how many developers do you have? And so, even though you have that intellectual property in the vault, ready to be developed into something more, who's going to develop it? And so that's your
Oh no, for
limit.
sure. No, that's totally the limit. But there's a bunch of these games that I am sure, I'm like 100% sure that GOG would like to relist. Like, I'm like 100% positive some of these. Like, they're gonna own Gabriel Knight. The King's Quest is gonna be theirs. Um, this isn't even the full list. There's more. Tenchu. Cause Hexen and Heretic 2 aren't here.
Hmm.
Which I think those on PC Game Pass maybe instantly. I think it'll either be relisted on Steam as soon as possible because the thing is, people want this game. You can't get it, and what easier way to look like a hero than be like, oh, we're bringing back these games that no one that got pulled off for whatever
Hmm.
reason.
Oh, certainly. It's. I mean, one of the things that would be
They did it
interesting to
with
see
Bethesda
is
stuff too.
it maybe what happens is as they're moving forward after acquisition, Microsoft might query some of their other companies to see what they're doing. And if a company doesn't have anything currently on the docket to do, they might go, oh, well, can you develop this game or something like that? That's definitely a potential. Um, like I said, it's you're still limited on how many developers you have and how many development teams you have.
Yeah. The thing was that Prey, after the Bethesda acquisition, Prey got relisted on the Microsoft Store, at least on the Xbox console, because it is backwards compatible. Uh, I had actually gone out of my way to get a physical copy of it.
Mhm.
Uh, one of my friends found it at a thrift shop and was like,
Mhm.
"Do you want any of these games?" And there was Prey. It was delisted at the time, and then a couple weeks later, magically it was back on the store. I I don't know if there's gonna be a ton of fanfare about things like that, but I feel like it's gonna happen. I think No One Lives Forever is also another one of those IP. Who owns this IP? Operation No One Lives Forever. Sorry.
Now, certainly the immediate introduction to the distribution companies, GOG, Steam, Microsoft Store, for all these
Hmm.
intellectual
Well,
properties,
GOG
definitely.
will. GOG does a lot of the hard, heavy lifting with that.
Mhm.
Like they'll get the game running, they test it, they get it working. Uh, yeah, Activision owns the rights to No One Lives Forever. Vindy and Sierra owned it. Very. And then they became part of Activision Blizzard. Yep, Activision Blizzard hold it. Did they sell it off? Hold on. Currently, I've never seen it, and given permission to. Wow, this is crazy. So Warner Brothers might. Well, hold on. So Monolith made this game, who is owned by Warner Brothers, who apparently do not own the IP. So Activision might not own the rights to No One Lives Forever. It is very cute, very very weird.
Yeah,
But
it's when you're talking about intellectual property and multiple owners, things get really wonky. I mean, just look at the attempt to bring X-Men back into the Marvel fold. It,
yeah,
X-Men,
yeah,
Spider-Man,
that
and all that. That the things get complicated legally speaking. Um,
Night Dive might be working on remaster apparently. That's that's the thing with some of these. It might be easier to just like get the rights to re-release the game and take out some of the copyrighted
oh, totally. Um,
material.
Now, what I think's going to happen is eventually they'll start working on more and more um, games because that's the end goal for Microsoft. Microsoft just needs content,
Yeah, because
and
if
so
that's the biggest issue with Microsoft right now is that all the content's been kind of backloaded to the second half of the year. It's not it needs to be spread out more.
mhm,
And they're still working on that distributing games on a at a reasonable pace.
mhm. But I would say the thing is like it's kind of funny seeing, people who are hardcore supporters of Xbox cheering all these acquisitions and talking about what it would affect, and all the hardcore supporters of like PlayStation bemoaning all these acquisitions. The thing is it's not something that's going to really happen until 5 years from now, and that's really what Microsoft's looking to do in the next 5-10 years. All of a sudden, now they have all these games that are coming out for their system and for their service, in that they just overwhelm the competition with just content. So eventually, yeah, it'll Microsoft will just have more games than they'll know what to do with. Um, but it is one of those things, like it's going to take some time. Like they still haven't fully acquired Activision.
Yep.
They I
They
believe
don't even have the ink is not even dry on that one. They can't sign the paperwork yet. They're still waiting
have
on.
have they fully acquired? I think they've fully acquired Bethesda.
Yeah, Bethesda was done.
Yeah.
That's part of them now.
So
And
it's one of those things,
but
like these
the thing is,
acquisitions take time.
they do. And the thing was, we just saw the last game that we know of that was timed exclusive for the PlayStation, and that was Ghostwire Tokyo release. So that was the last one that we know of that had timed exclusivity paid for by Sony.
Mm-hmm.
So now, like, that's the thing. We haven't seen anything come out post the acquisition, and a lot of people have been complaining about that, but the problem is that you can't just acquire a company and be like, well, everything's gonna come out only on Xbox, or everything's only come out that. You have to honor these deals, otherwise you look like a bad guy, like a very bad guy, and they don't want to give that impression, and I understand.
Oh, definitely. And for that matter, honestly, that is, if my understanding of how Microsoft has operated for the past 30 years, um, that is not how Microsoft is looking to play this. As a company, what they're looking to play is, like I said, they're trying to overwhelm. They're trying to make it be like, hey, if you spend only 14, and it may go up a little bit later on, but if you only
I
spend
think it. I
$15,
think it will.
you have this access to all these games, like this plethora of games, and
I do wonder
so people start
with.
doing that, and they get introduced to Xbox games, and then they start buying Xbox game consoles. And what's going to happen is eventually Microsoft is going to be doing favors for Sony, because the thing is Microsoft is always finds itself on the edge of a monopoly. And so they're forced to,
Yes, they always do. That
and
is
so, for
true.
example, Microsoft, releases regularly Microsoft Office for MacBooks,
Yeah,
just to
that's
be
the thing.
like,
Yes,
here,
they do.
you could, we're not just supporting just ourselves. Here, we released this version for Mac OS.
I think they also have a version for Chromebooks now too.
Well, the Office suite, it is online, and it is software. It is the prime, I I would believe, success story for Microsoft of
A
software as a
software
service
service. Yeah,
model, because you
yeah.
can
I
you
just
can
used
purchase
Open
a
Office.
subscription to it. Um,
I don't use it. I haven't used Microsoft Office since I want to say like 2002 was the last version I used because
if I start writing articles again or go back to college, I will start using Microsoft Office again, because Microsoft Office has some pretty advanced
I'm not
tools
saying they don't. It's just I've never
for
really needed to use it since.
writing official papers. and stuff. Like they make it ridiculously easy to cite sources, and you could like last time I used it was a while ago, but and so they might have improved it by now even more. But you could add a whole bunch of your sources to it, and then from that go and click and go, okay, I want to put a footnote here or a citation to this resource, this page, and it just automatically adds it, formatting everything. And that was like amazing at the time when they would start doing that. But it's one of those things like Microsoft has always, like I said, been on the edge of being a monopoly, and so they always end up kind of either helping the competition or really favorably dealing with the competition. So I don't see Microsoft as trying to get exclusivity. Now they might be doing in some way, at least maybe with the big stuff or maybe with the somewhat big stuff, timed exclusivity. We'll release Xbox now and then
I think
6
what they're
months from
doing
now for
is,
Sony.
because the game has changed. We've seen Xbox games release on, because they own Mojang. Minecraft's on everything.
Oh yeah.
So Minecraft Dungeons came out. That was a new game released on everything day and date. Switch, PC,
Oh yeah.
well, Steam, Microsoft Store, Xbox, basically everything that's it can be on.
Mm-hmm.
But Microsoft also did something funny because Sony was being douchebags last gen, like PlayStation 4 gen, about crossplay. They didn't want to enable it. They didn't want people to have access to their thing. And Microsoft's like, well, you want the Minecraft update, right? For your players? It's built on crossplay. So, you want this update, you got to do. And they did. They ended up opening the floodgates, but Sony still has ridiculous rules in place for it. And the thing is, Microsoft buying COD is literally going to light a fire under Sony's ass. Honestly, we needed this. We needed this last gen. We needed Microsoft to keep them in check. And I don't want to be like Microsoft is the good guy. No. We need these two companies competing at all times.
Oh yeah.
Actually, all three would be ideal, but Microsoft in particular has the money to make Sony play a little fairer. Crossplay on any game that's multi-platform should be standard. I think that's not even a crazy statement to say. You were like me and you grew up in an era where, you know, we had online games and people wanted to play them together, but they couldn't because, you know, your buddy had a PlayStation and you had an Xbox, or vice versa. And it was like, it would be just nice if we could just play all together when we're at home, you know, go online and just play. That was a pipe dream, like, years ago. And now it's a reality, and the companies are the ones holding us back from it.
Oh yeah. And it's with Microsoft, it's certainly one of those situations where like they're leaning into that software as a service model, and so that's why what's going to happen is they're not going to block crossplay. It, it's kind of the business model that's designed for consoles, businesses, because at that point Microsoft doesn't have to build a console that's better on paper than PlayStation.
But they're
And
still going to do it because they have the money.
and here's the thing, they're still going to push it forward, certainly, but if you look at the Nintendo business model for consoles, you don't have to.
You don't, but you have to have something that's appealing to
Yeah.
That's
Well,
the thing. Like the Switch is not like comparing the Switch to the Series X and the PlayStation 5 is,
oh,
I
totally.
would say, a
Uh,
little bit.
Capabilities of the console wise, night and day.
Yeah.
Totally. But it's one of those things where a long time ago, Nintendo backed off and was like, you know what, we're not even trying to compete with these
No, they
people.
didn't. They went with
Because
just IP because they have legacy, right? Like they have the IP legacy, and that's kind of the thing. Is Sony ditched a lot of their legacy in favor of new and shiny things. Like,
yeah,
what legacy IP does Sony have? Like, what is the
that
honestly,
just
off the top of
Sony
your head,
has.
legacy Sony IP?
Oh shoot.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can't think of any offhand.
Because
Now I'm
Crash
sure some
Bandicoot.
Tonys are going to come into
That's no, it's fine because
protest,
that's
but
this is the god honest truth. Is they ditched a lot of their legacy IP. Um,
well, see, that's the
Crash
thing.
Bandicoot and Spyro the Dragon would have been the big two from the PlayStation era, the original PlayStation era, and those IPs are owned by Activision now. They used to be owned by Universal, I believe, and Universal just sold off to, and Activision was the one that bought. I would argue that the ones that the PS2 era is where they really are keeping some of the IP from. That's where you get God of War, and where you get like Jack and Dexter or um, Ratchet and Clank,
Mhm.
which got a new game. For the most part, their legacy IP is basically non-existent, and it's sad. And I'm not gonna say that Microsoft hasn't done the same thing. Like we've never seen another Blinks game in all these years, and
Mhm.
but Halo is still going. Like Halo's
Mhm.
still going. Forza's still going, but Forza isn't really the Forza came with the 360 if I'm not mistaken, and so did Gears of War. But like Nintendo, while they're not making like a new Ice Climbers game, they still acknowledge their old IP,
Oh yeah.
and like Legend of Zelda's still getting games. It's honestly interesting how Sony kind of ditched everything that was childish for the PlayStation 4 gen. Like they had Knack in that. Knack is a fine game,
Mhm.
but they went on this chase for what I would call the mature audience or the adult audience.
Mhm.
Maybe I'm being weird, but
Yeah.
kind of kind of seems like what they did.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be the case that you're seeing Microsoft and Xbox by connection rise currently, and Sony seemingly kind of struggling to catch up.
I don't know if they're
And then
struggling to catch up, but they came from a position of power,
mhm,
and this is um kind of a repeat of the PS2 to the PS3 gen, where they had the most popular console on the block, and then so a new up and comer or Microsoft comes in and beats them to market.
mhm,
Not this time, but the 360 came out a year before the PS3. Yes, it had issues, but those didn't come up till a little later. But it happened, right? Like they
mhm,
beat them to market, and
yeah,
Sony's never let that happen again. because they were cocky. They had the more expensive console. It wasn't quite as powerful, and Microsoft was like, "Yeah, the Xbox One generation arguably had the better launch lineup, but it was marketed terribly."
Oh,
And
yeah.
I think that's the biggest issue you could have with that gen. So it's interesting to see history repeat itself, kind of, but Microsoft did just buy a bunch of legacy IP though, like
Mm-hmm.
a ton of legacy IP. It's like, hey guys, we own Fallout now. Hey guys,
Yep.
we own Doom now. Doom's probably one of the like biggest, like Doom, Quake, like, jeez. That was the thing though, because John Carmack said he'd never go back to id. Well, it was under ZeniMax
Mm-hmm.
management.
Yeah.
When Microsoft bought them, he was like, maybe. So
I
maybe
was
we do
waiting to see
something with
what
John.
Microsoft does. You know.
Well, he's got other projects. Like John Carmack is an
Oh yeah.
insanely smart guy, but I don't know. I don't know if he'll go back or not. I don't know if any of the other id co-founders would be interested in going back and doing stuff. Like John Romero's doing stuff with his wife, so why would he? Maybe he wants to like do something with them. Maybe not. All I know right now is that this is like a crazy shaping moment in the gaming industry. And it could lead to something that's really good or really bad. I don't know if I want to elaborate on that, but software as a service I think is fine, but there does come a point where how many games are going to be on Game Pass at a time? Like first party stuff.
Well, I see
Uh,
them definitely cycling to a certain extent, cycling games out.
yeah, I don't know cuz they said when they acquired Activision, they weren't like we're going to put every game on Game Pass. Do you think COD becomes a day and date Xbox Game Pass game?
Possibly. I
Do
mean,
you really think it sells every year? It makes big buckaroos on all platforms.
mhm.
Do you give that up to have it day and date on Game Pass? Like we know
Well,
they intend to keep it multi-platform because it's such a big IP, but
mhm.
that's the thing. I don't know.
Um,
It's so hard to say, right?
well, I feel like what they're going to do is they're going to end up being, still having it be part of, because you look at examples of everything else, and they'll be like, okay, this is
Day
available
one.
day
Yeah, day
one
one. Like
on the Game Pass or PlayStation Plus network. And so you're seeing that as being a common model. Now, like I said, the goal of it being like if they go with the software as a service model, that's where you're going to have your like crates and loot boxes and stuff like that. That's what they're going to go with. Now
possibly, but that's what I
to
mean. I'm not trying to say like Call of Duty's gonna just be like something you have to buy every year,
hmm
but I don't know if they're gonna keep the yearly Call of Duty going either. Because I
yeah.
think Call of Duty like fatigue is starting to set in at this point.
Oh yeah, and that happens. Probably with Now, the thing that surprises to me is that Microsoft only has 2 levels for Game Pass.
At the moment, yes. I think
And mostly,
I could honestly see a COD tier. Like
or like a
just
premium tier of some sort, because if you look at like PlayStation Plus has a essential. I
is it
think it's an
is it
essential,
3
and
or 4 tiers now? The top tier makes no sense. It
I
really
thought there
does.
was just 2 tiers on PlayStation, but you know,
No, they changed it. There's 3 now. I think there's like plus essential and the whatever the premium one. The
okay.
premium one makes no sense.
Hmm.
It really does. Like you're paying to get like legacy content and stuff, or it's like demos. It's not worth the extra money.
Yeah. Um. Well, it's one of those things from what I've seen that, um, like with PlayStation Network having so many different tiers for their PlayStation Plus, but that's only for PlayStation. It's not like PlayStation
It's
or
not like
Sony is
PC
releasing, PC
day and
games and
date on
stuff like that.
PC. They are
Um,
releasing PC games, but they're not day one. And Nixus seems to be the one doing the porting for them. Honestly, it's going to be super fascinating to see if Sony keeps up this. Like it's a year or 2 years before there's a PC version of their games, because that
mhm,
market's untapped for them, and they're starting to see growth in that market. And it's not like PlayStation games never came out on PC, because
mhm,
there were several that used to come out from the original PlayStation that were PC and PlayStation and didn't come out in the N64 or the
mhm.
Dreamcast when the Dreamcast was. So, yeah, it's interesting. Okay, it's kind of late, so let's wrap it up.
All
What
right.
have you been playing this week?
Well, let's see here. What have I been playing this week? This week, nothing. Had a
Nothing?
graduation party and then
Had
recovering
a
from that.
party. Recovery.
so,
Okay. So
so
just shows and stuff. So I guess then it's me talking. So I've been playing the second part of the Zero Escape package. It came up on Game Pass not that long ago. The Nonary games, and this one's called, was it Virtue's Last Reward? Yes. Um, I played the first game pretty quickly. I think it was last week or the week before. I don't know if I talked about it. It's I keep wanting to say the Japanese title. It's like 9 people, 9 doors, and something else. I don't remember.
Mhm,
But basically, it's like a visual novel where you're trying to get through a thing, and the visual novels lead to like a puzzle. You have to talk with characters and figure out what overall's going on, and then have the right combination of things to get to the best ending.
mhm.
The Virtue's Last Reward is borderlining on what I hated about Danganronpa 2. I don't know if you've ever played any of these games.
They don't sound familiar to me.
Um, Danganronpa is high school students. The second one's on an island, but the first one's in a high school, and you have to get away with murder. If you kill someone and get away with it, they release you, and everyone else dies. Otherwise, you can live your life in peace with everyone else forevermore inside this school, and they don't give you any content to the outside world. The second game's
Okay.
on an island, and I'm not going to spoil the twist. But No No Games 2 Virtue's Last Reward brushes really close to what I really dislike about it, but never gets too far into it. Like, it's definitely a slow burn. If the first game I can pretty much wholeheartedly recommend because it's not that many paths.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost double the amount of paths in the second game. I think I beat the first one in like just under 10 hours when I realized I could just skip to where I needed to get the endings I needed. But the second one has been a lot more uh just long paths with lots of explanation to get to things.
Mm-hmm.
And while I very much am okay with that, it's just I'm kind of getting ready for uh AI to the Solominium files. I think it's Nirvana Protocol or Nirvana something is the second game. Quick. And that is going to be that comes out on the 24th of this month, I want to say. Is that when it comes out? Yeah, June 24th. The Nirvana Initiative. That's what it's called.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It's hard to recommend some of these more. These are very Japanese kind of games. If you're very much into like a murder mystery kind of thing or a mystery type game with escape room kind of puzzles as it goes, I can wholly recommend them. The first game is a lot of math. I hope you're good at math because there's a ton of it in the first
Gotcha.
game. The second game has some of it, and this is on Game Pass, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Zero Escape is the bundle. It is an interesting game, and I don't think it's bad, but I'd play the first one, see how you feel. What I don't like Sigma, the main character in the second game, because he is not voiced. In the first game, Junpei, he was voiced, and he actually had a character. Sigma is pants. I hate pants protagonists. I mean, like self-insert characters. They're a pair of pants. Just put them on.
Mm-hmm.
I really don't like that. What other games did I play this week? I played some of. That's right. I played some of Tomb Raider, the
The newer
remake,
one?
the
Oh, the
newer
remake?
the newer trilogy, the definitive
Okay.
edition on Xbox. Um, that game has aged not the best, but it is definitely not the worst game I've played. Some of the stuff is weird. Some of the design choices definitely feel dated at this point.
Mm-hmm.
I remember liking the second game a lot more because it refined things. Like there's a hunting
Gotcha.
mechanic where you have to go like and you get salvage from them that you can use to just upgrade things. Like there's a skill tree, there's all this RPG stuff and crafting, but why can't you just find parts or like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the RPG mechanic is just like a thing people want now. It's like I want RPG mechanics in everything, and I'm like, why?
Yeah.
Why?
Sir, this is a Wendy's.
Like that is a good thing about games like the Nonary games or AI, the Selenium files, is that they don't have needless RPG mechanics.
Mm-hmm.
There's definitely some role playing involved, but not RPG mechanics. Like I gotta level up, I gotta do this.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, excuse me. Okay, I think my body's telling me it is time to get to bed. So
Alright.
before we go, I'll let you say goodbye. You have a Twitter or anything people want to hit you up at?
Not at the moment.
Not at the moment. Okay, maybe later.
Maybe later. We'll see.
Maybe later. That's enough of it. All right. So I think that's good. It's like 5 in the morning.
Yes, it is.
Bedtime. Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.